Girls of Reddit. What is something guys shouldn't feel insecure about? Story 1. I have had a lot of guy friends that are really insecure about pimples or acne. I'll tell them that everyone gets them and everyone is insecure about it, but their response is usually something like, girls have makeup to hide it. And so I taught a few of them how to subtly put on concealer so they could feel more confident. Story 2. Dick size and weight. I understand some people might think this is a lie, but I personally think so as a woman because size is not what determines how good sex is. Some may have a preference, but with 7 billion people in this world, I think preferences are diverse. Plus, there are sizes too. Many people forget that. As for weight, love your body. Confidence is attractive. It only should be put to concern if our health is affected by it. Also, this is my opinion. This isn't a lie because this is genuinely how I think. I know there are people out there who can agree, while others may not. Story 3. The flip side of the comments about not being able to grow a beard. Guys shouldn't feel insecure about being hairy. I love a hairy chest and don't find a hairy back or shoulders to be a problem. Like most things listed here, yeah, you'll find women who won't like it, but if they're willing to write you off for something physical that is out of your control, they probably aren't the person for you. I will say, regardless of anything else, hygiene is important. If you're hairy, you might sweat more depending on the climate and how warm you run. But if you shower regularly and keep everything clean, it's all good. This includes hairy butts, backs, legs, shoulders, etc. I think the only thing I might ask someone to trim would be crazy nose hair, though that could be disguised by a mustache. Story 4. I don't know if it's true or not, but I've heard a lot of guys are insecure or care a lot about their hair. One of my guy friends once told me that he spends a good 15 minutes in the morning styling it, so it looks okay. Honestly, I don't really notice a guy's hair like a buzz cut, super long, or just some wild hair, unless it's drastically different from everyone else. Story 5. A good example is actually happening right now. I'm at a pool party. Two very nice overweight guys are in the pool, but they're both wearing t-shirts to cover their guts and just standing around. Then there's the third heaviest guy who easily has an extra 40 pounds than the other two guys. He's shirtless, having the time of his life, playing in the abandoned pool and cracking jokes. He's way more attractive to the girls because he isn't ashamed of his body and exudes confidence. Should all three lose weight? Sure, most of us should, but don't stop having fun because you're ashamed of yourself. Live your life and have fun. This is very attractive to all people. Just my opinion. I'm a middle-aged woman and I think I have a bit of wisdom about things like this. I've seen some shit. Story 6. Guys shouldn't feel insecure about stereotypical masculine standards. Do you want to do handicrafts like sew or crochet or scrapbook? Great, we can do it together. I suck at them though, so the farthest I'll probably get is watching YouTube tutorials with you. You can wear cute things and accessories like scarves and handbags. Hell, you can borrow mine. If you need some time to unload emotionally with a bubble bath or a one-on-one afternoon tea about whatever jerk you encountered X days ago, it doesn't mean you're weak or unreliable. It means you know how to handle your emotions in a controlled and healthy way. I once had a lady question my masculinity because I was playing the video game Peggle. Story 7. Don't feel insecure about the size of your penis. It really is about what you do with it. And honestly, guys with big penises are just painful most of the time. A lot of them also just fall back on the size of their penis as an excuse to be lazy as well. Don't be worried about your hair. Being too hairy, not having enough hair, etc. If someone isn't into you because your hair isn't Goldilocks just right, they aren't really worth the time to get into a relationship with. If she's complaining when she meets you that you don't have enough hair, have too much hair, or don't have hair in the places she wants, and have hair in the places she doesn't, what is she going to be like 10 years down the road? Don't worry about having a gym body. It is much better to just be healthy, and a lot of guys with massive muscles just aren't. As well, a lot of them just put stress on the women they're with to be as built as they are. Also, what appeals to the eye is not always the same as what appeals to the other senses. For that matter, what appeals to the eye isn't always huge muscles and little fat. That is just a part of the media pressure that is telling all women they should look like Kim Kardashian. Money. Just the same thing as the gym body, financial success is one element women may look at, but it is usually just one of very many. Back to the idea of hair. If she's just looking at your financial success, what is it going to be like in 10 years if you lose your job? If you wouldn't hold a woman to the same standard, don't feel you should live up to that for her. Your relationship should be about equality and actually sharing your life, even if you're just looking at the short term. That Saturday night is a chunk of your life. If you're not getting something from it, if you're just living up to her standards, it isn't worth your time. Being macho and acting strong all the time is not that important to most women. It's one of those pressures society puts on you. It's okay to say you're scared. It's okay to say you're depressed. It's okay not to fight someone just because they're trying to insult you in public. It's okay to just be a person. If you like video games and eating pizza on the weekend, it's not okay for someone to tell you that it's wrong. There are women out there that would be like, cool, hand me a slice and the second controller. You're not automatically in the wrong because a woman wants something different. Right. Story 8. Height. I know the popular presumption is that anyone under 6 foot is screwed, but if a girl considers a couple of inches to be a deal breaker, she's not worth your time anyway. I'm short, but lots of my tall and beautiful friends have dated men somewhat to quite a bit shorter than them. It's no big deal. To all the dudes snarking about how the above is not true, I promise ya, the kind of shitty attitude is way more unattractive than any physical characteristic. And if the only women you ever want truly all diss you for height, well, I'd look inwardly about your own tastes too. Story 9. Size. Honest to God, the best lover I've ever had wasn't hung. It was an average-sized dude, and by today's standards, or more so the trope influenced by is small. I'm not a fan of big dicks. If the guys know how to use it, sure, it feels great, but most of the time it doesn't feel great and I just end up in pain the following day and not in a good sense. Anyways, big dicks are the college diplomas of the world. Just because you have a college diploma does not mean you're going to be good at the job or intrinsically intelligent just because you have it. And to further prove my point, when you go about bragging about your diploma, you're gonna look like an incompetent idiot when you whip it out and demonstrate that you didn't learn a damn thing about how to utilize it in the real world, despite having the means to get it. Seriously, if you're a man who has a small dick, I need you to let go of any insecurity you have regarding your size if you do have that insecurity. The best thing that wows a woman is the ability to get in tune with her body and read her reactions. Small rant over, peace. Story 10. Don't feel insecure about liking girly things. Just order that fruity drink and watch that rom-com and sing in the shower. A lot fewer people care than you might realize. Story 11. They should stop feeling insecure about showing emotion, especially in a relationship. A lot of guys grew up being told that showing emotion was girly. But honestly, when a guy is open about how he's feeling and doesn't suppress it, it makes everyone feel more secure. When the girl feels like she's the only one who has real feelings in the relationship, then it's hard to trust the guy, and the guy often feels misunderstood that he isn't conveying what he wants to. Guys, please know it's okay to be emotional. You deserve to be honest with the people around you, and it makes relationships so much better for everyone involved. Story 12. Don't feel insecure about saying no. I feel like men are always expected to fix the problem, be brave, suck it up, and quit whining. We're being told to not say no to because they're getting laid, so what's the problem? To the point where people still think it's funny when a guy is getting emotionally or physically abused. That it's the man's job to do all the hard, scary stuff. To be expected to say yes to every job, every anxiety-raising task, and not wanting things like personal space, social reprieve, praise, appreciation, to feel validated, or compassion. Forget resting and taking care of your own mental health. That ain't gonna build itself. Are you feeling sick and think you may need to go to the ER? Someone's got a man cold, boo-hoo. The giant hornet's nest in the porch? Just swat at them, grab them with your bare hands, and run with them like a football, damn it. Are you hanging out with your friends and doing things you genuinely enjoy? Fuck you, asshole. You are now a loser who is never going to find love since it's against the laws to not be taking care of everyone, you know, while you're breathing. Men need to be able to tell people to like, if they're uncomfortable with the way a girl is aggressively sexualizing them, be able to say that the demeaning shit you say to them was not at all okay. Not being shamed for not knowing how the fuck to assemble a Mustang manually like real men do. Then no, Jessica, I will not go and fist fight with the creeps who just chainsawed his way through the garage. I'll call the fucking cops. Plus, one of the best parts of relationships, whether platonic or romantic, is knowing that the other person is happy and comfortable. My dudes need to quit hiding the fact that something ain't Gucci here, and tell us, so we can stop doing that. Let people know your limits and boundaries. I love you dudes. You'll deserve the best lives. Take care of yourselves and say fuck you to Jessica, the crazy bitch. Story 13. Size for sure. At least for me, sex is an intimate experience focusing on connecting souls while making yourself completely vulnerable and trusting your partner. Even in extreme cases, there are a ton of sex toys and tools to get each other off. I'm including micro penises in this. There are so many tools and methods out there that you can use, giddily and excitedly as partners to get each other off and shake things up. If a dude is dating a chick who breaks up with him due to his size, consider it as dodging a bullet. Considering the plethora of tools out there that can be used to satisfy each other, if she gives up on your relationship for something so shallow, what else will she give up on so easily? Her priorities are obviously not in the right order. You will find someone who cares for you, for who you are, and you can still get freaky. Story 14. I have so many answers for this, lol. All coming from my experience with my man. Super long, but super wholesome. Receding hairlines. I don't care. I'm sure the majority of the world doesn't either. He's so self-conscious about it, but honestly, it looks hot on him. He has it cut in that high and tight police style, ironic for his career choice. He gets so bent out of shape when it starts growing because of his hairline. I'm sorry, boo, you're still hot regardless. Hairy body parts. Again, that shit is hot as hell to me. He's probably the hairiest person I've ever been with, and I honestly love it. He doesn't have any on his chest, but his arms, legs, and everything else down below have hair, and I love that he embraces it. As long as you keep it clean, there are no issues to be found. It reminds me of a rugged mountain man or some shit. Also, I would be a hypocrite to judge someone about hair because I'm probably the hairiest female that he has ever been with. Thanks a whole lot to genetics and female problems. So I say, rock on, fellas. Dick size. I cannot stress this enough. I don't know about everyone else, but for me, bigger does not mean better. It honestly hurts. I have a narrow and small vagina, so anything large just makes me want to slap the shit out of you. Lol. I think he's perfect with his size, despite his having hang-ups about it. As long as you know how to use it and can please me in other ways, I don't give a rat's ass. Playing video games. That's how he and I bond. We play GTA, Minecraft, Spyro, you name it. We've played it. I love watching him play, and I understand that it is his way of decompressing after a long day, and I won't penalize him for it. I'll just ask him to pass me the controller for multiplayer. Video games are fun. Just know your limits and don't let them consume your entire life. Weight. Big and tall, short and skinny, chunky and thick. I don't care. They have dated a wide spectrum of guys, all with different body shapes, from a more filled out man to a guy who worked out almost every day. He's tall, about 6'2" and not skinny, but not big either. Bubble butt. Can we say yum? Intoned forearms and shoulders. I appreciate his body, and I appreciate what it does for him. Again, I would be a hypocrite if I judged based on body type. I'm not exactly the skinniest person on earth. Imagine a pair that is filled out in the bottom a lot with nothing on top. But hey, we love each other and that's all that matters. Showing emotion. I love emotional men. Love them. Yes, boo, show me that you think that cat is adorable as f***. Hype up my outfit and makeup. Cuddle all the puppies. Get angry with me as we watch Allie play Noah like a damn harp. Cry with me when I'm on my period and my world is crashing down. We don't want you to be this big masculine mountain that can never be moved. We want you to speak up when something is bothering you. We want you to show us you love us. Please don't let anyone or anything make you feel like emotions are the devil. Sorry for the long post, but as I sit here at work typing this out, it made me realize just how much I appreciate my boyfriend and everything he is and does for me. All the insecurities you have, my friends, are things that with the right person won't matter much. Someone who loves you will embrace them, love them, and help you work on them if that is what you wish. Fellas, you are loved and you are appreciated. Story 15. Loads of stuff. Dick size. Whether you know how to use it and understand that there's more to sex than just PIV, or penis and vagina, is way more important than the size. Losing your virginity. It's not a race, and it's not as a big deal as everyone makes out. Chances are your first time won't be that great, because no one really knows what they're doing their first time. But practice makes perfect. Their height. I know it seems that taller guys seem to get more women, but if a woman won't be involved with you because of your height, she's not the one for you. And it's better that you find out before you get involved with her than have your heart broken further down the line. Too skinny or too fat. My fella is 35, 6'4", and weighs 12 stone. He won't come swimming with me and my son because he's so self-conscious about how skinny he is. I don't see him as skinny. To me, he's slim but toned, love the biceps and the V-dip. On the flip side, I've also been out with men who won't go swimming because of how big they are. For example, one was 6'7" and 30 stone, I'm 5'4" and a half, about 10.5 stone. He was self-conscious when we were out together because he constantly thought people were judging him for his size and thinking I could do better than him. I could and did, but had nothing to do with his size. Hair, on the head or anywhere else. Personally, I tend to be one extreme or the other. As a bloke, I either like long hair, a buzz cut, or skinhead or bald. Body hair I like on a man, especially chest hair when laying in bed, cuddling and relaxing. It gives me something to run my fingers through and play with. It's a comfort thing for me. Don't like blokes that shave or wax their chest or legs for vanity reasons, although I understand that some do it for sports, swimming, cycling, etc. If they're naturally not hairy, that's fine too. But I can tell the difference between waxed or shaved and naturally hairless. Facially, I like men with a bit of stubble or a beard. Don't like just a mustache on its own. Looks a bit like 70s porn star. My fella definitely looks best with a bit of stubble. He looks like a 12-year-old if he shaves. Blesses him. One of my exes just looked scruffy with stubble or a beard, but was really good looking when he shaved. On the flip side, on women, I don't like any body hair except for on the head and eyebrows. I even shave my arms. Oh, and I think that women should have long hair. I don't like women who have short hair. So on men, I think the ones who wax or shave for vanity reasons are a bit strange. But on women, I think it's icky if they don't remove all hair from the neck down. Total double standard, I know. But it's my preference and I would never shame anyone for any choice they make about their own body. Money. You don't need to make tons of it. And any woman that demands you make more than hers or pays for everything, that kind of stuff, is a gold digger and you're better off without them in your life. Accommodation. Don't be ashamed of where you live. Moved out at 16 and moved back in at 29, with my son in tow. Let my ex keep the house because I couldn't afford to rent it on my own and he still had somewhere to live and be able to have his children overnight, so it made the most sense. I have a great relationship with my mom, so I'm quite lucky. I'm 32 and still living with my mom. Been back here for 3 years now, we split all the bills down the middle, and I have a free built-in babysitter that I know I can trust on the extremely rare occasions I go out. As long as you have a roof over your head, Don't be ashamed of your living situation. Unless it's a pigsty and can be solved by just doing housework, then you definitely should be ashamed and should clean up. Who cares if you're still living with your parents when you get to your 30s or 40s? It's insanely expensive trying to rent by yourself. The only way it can be really done, unless you're earning a shitload of money, is either to move in with a partner or a housemate. Unless you and your parents don't get on, live with them for as long as possible, try to save as much as you can, and hopefully you'll be able to get enough money together for a mortgage. Mortgage payments tend to be lower than rent, at least in the UK. If you can change it, don't worry about it. Live the best life you can, and as long as you're happy and not doing anything illegal, that's all that matters. We all have to die at some point, so make the most of the time you have, and don't sweat the small stuff. Story 16. Size. Doesn't matter that much if you are at least adequate at play. Not having a six-pack. Sure, we like them, but we have a very little expectation that you have them. One more. Every guy seems to freak out the first time their dick doesn't work. It really does happen to everyone. Whiskey dick is a thing, medications can do it, and if you freak out too much, it will actually make it worse. Also, too much can actually make it harder to perform. If it starts to happen too often, relax, hydrate, and stay away from porn for a week or two. If it bothers you or you aren't getting morning wood, check with your physician just to be sure. Also, it's not erectile dysfunction if you can't get hard 5 minutes after completion. You're just not 20 anymore. Story 17. Don't feel insecure about anything. Really get to know yourself, get to know your strengths and your weaknesses. It has helped boost my confidence 10 times over. I used to be insecure about my height, but now I look at it like this. I can't do anything about it, and I don't have to worry about hitting my head on things. I suck at sports, but I still play to have fun and hang out with my friends. I don't know what I'm doing with my life, but I know if I keep going to uni and working hard, it'll work out and I'll figure it out. If you ever feel like you don't have anybody in your corner, reach out to Reddit. There are tons of people here who will care about you and what you're doing. Just keep your head up and don't piss your pants in a dark bathroom at 2 in the morning.
What's a good sign a dude is secure in his masculinity? I'm a combat veteran, father of 2, engineer, happily married man for nearly 20 years, financially secure, own a home. I can fix it, build nearly anything. But I still get a lot of men giving me advice and man rules. I used to hang out with some alpha male types, and below are some of the things they told me. I like musicals, so apparently I'm not straight. My wife and I evenly split chores, cooking, and raising our kids, so apparently I'm not straight. My wife earned more than me, despite the fact I make a pretty high salary, so apparently I'm not straight. I enjoy cooking and do a lot of the cleaning, so apparently I'm not straight. I let my wife back the car up so me and the salesman could load the new TV into it, so apparently I'm not straight. I love and respect my wife, and I enjoy my wife's company. Guess what? Apparently, I'm not straight for that. Those are things that real men have told me make me not straight. The funny thing is that one man that told me some of these got divorced, couldn't keep a good job, and ended up making a little over minimum wage as a late 30s alpha male. He also has a really hard time finding girls to date. He thought he was going to be slamming 20-year-olds left and right. Also, so many of them have issues in bed and require ED meds. Heard these things directly from them, or their wives complained about it to my wife. The alpha males are often compensating. Many of them are genuinely nice guys that have an annoying trait, as we all do. But the alpha of the alphas in these groups tends to be the biggest piece of crap in the world. Maybe these alpha males should focus on fixing their own lives instead of policing everyone else's. Talk about a confidence crisis. Story 2. I'm going to use my husband as an example because he's so secure in himself without being manly. He has never needed to be an alpha or whatever. These are just some of the things he does that I believe make him feel secure, not superior. He paints his nails. He saw another dude with painted nails and was like, dang, those look nice and I want to try it. So he did. He even does little designs and stuff for different holidays. It's so cool. He compliments anyone he wants to, like the dude with the nail polish. He can compliment a woman without it sounding creepy. He stands up for people. This is a big one that I absolutely love about him. One year on Easter, his grandparents started bashing trans people. I got super upset and left the conversation. He stayed and explained why it is important to have trans representation in the media. This was after the Dylan Mulvaney commercial. I can't drink the sweet drinks because of health issues, but he loves them. We recently went out for dinner and I ordered a vodka soda. He ordered a pomegranate or some such fruit margarita. They got carded and I didn't. That was a weird thing to have happen, as I'm also younger than him. I think the server saw us as mom and son. He really enjoyed his drink, though. I don't know. I think being able to not see things as not straight because it's girly is a huge thing that shows comfort in yourself, regardless. Oh, he also really loves getting flowers. I get them for him randomly, and he always lights up. I heard that whole, men only get flowers at the funeral, and I was absolutely not. There are so many other things, but this comment is already too long, so I'll stop. Thank you for giving me a chance to just appreciate him. Story 3. Comedian Eliza Schlesinger summed it up perfectly. A lion doesn't call itself a freaking lion. He's not afraid to drink appletinis because they're delicious, and whiskey tastes like spiced antiseptic. He'll wear a pink shirt and watch Barbie with his girlfriend. Even better if he sees it because he thinks it looks like a fun movie. He's not afraid to hold his wife's purse or go shopping with her. If they have kids, he'll get a minivan because that's what they need. He also doesn't try to praise himself for this, as he doesn't see this as something outside of what men do. If he likes to knit, he knits. If he likes Sailor Moon, he'll get the merch. He has no issues with shows with strong female leads. He's not afraid to hug his guy friends, be friends with queer men. He'll go to their clubs and drag shows and get into it. He'll cry at their wedding and gush over engagement rings. If he's hit on by a guy, he goes super flattered, but I'm straight. If he's sad, he says, I'm sad. If he needs emotional support, he asks for help. He admits he feels insecure or fat. If a girl rejects him, he won't try and turn her into a witch that he never wanted to date anyway because he knows it's not a reflection on his manhood. He won't try to sleep with every girl he sees or boast about his intimate life. He's a feminist, even when it's inconvenient for him. Insecure guys will be a girl power, yeah, as long as women are less than or equal to them. Women cannot be more than them, and if they are, it's only because they allow it. He scoffs at the idea he deserves respect solely because he's a man. He doesn't see things as things men do or don't do. They're just things. If you like them, you do them. If you don't partake. He has no reason to prove he's masculine or whipped or not queer, because he knows he isn't. And it doesn't matter if someone thinks he's not straight for liking Cosmos, because a drink doesn't determine his gender. Story 4. When I was in my early 20s, I said something to my dad about real men don't do, and he, without missing a beat, goes, real men don't give a crap what other men think. And it stuck with me. I live in a rural area full of guys who have this weird obsession with how other men choose to live. You don't drive a truck? Must be a wuss. You wear anything other than a t-shirt and jeans? Wuss. You show interest in anything other than sports, cars, and hunting? Wuss. That attitude gives off such insecurity, it's unreal. Just be who you are and stop being so invested in how other people live their lives. Speak softly and carry a big stick sums up my feelings on it. Story 5. I don't present as hypermasculine, so I get it. I'm short, long-haired, skinny, and I grow a crappy beard. I'm not afraid to compliment men on their looks or make jokes at my own expense, even the non-straight ones. If insulted, I either lean into it or just ignore it. I don't threaten physical violence over intellectual debate or disagreements. I hate war nowadays, and I dare to treat women as equals. I do have a truck. I need it for my job. Well, it makes some parts of it way easier, but I got a Santa Cruz, which is a small Japanese 4-foot bed truck, instead of an F950 Ultra extended bed Ultra Cab Super Duty diesel dually lifted truck with the off-road tires. I would probably think I was a little not straight too, if I didn't know me. Story 6. I remember one day a customer got into an argument with him and the customer called him small, which upset my coworker to the point where he charged into our break room afterwards, yelling and swiping all the paper towels off the table. He doesn't know me, calling me small and crap. I'll probably sound like a schmuck here, but I didn't try to calm him down. It was hilarious. The kid was a tool who constantly put down other people in the store. He was a walking meme for lame alpha males. We were all so happy when he put in his 2 weeks. I never met somebody so fragile. Story 7. You can always tell if somebody's been in combat by how little they talk about it. When I was growing up, I was essentially told that being a man meant putting your personal BS aside and doing what's right by other people. It didn't mean whining incessantly about how so-and-so demanding everybody got on their knees and kiss your back. People always talk about how men bottle up their emotions, but sometimes, I swear to God, I think it's the opposite for most of us. So many men are totally ruled by emotion and let it manifest in the most selfish ways possible, like a toddler throwing a tantrum at Walmart. They never learn that they're only as good as they are to others and instead think others should be good to them for no reason at all. Story 8. My dad was a stay-at-home father and worked part-time nights and weekends, completely against traditional norms in the 90s to 2000s, especially in the South. I remember growing up, kids would say that my dad was really my mom and would poke fun at him taking on that role. But he knew my mom loved her career, and his career was long, long hours, so something had to give. And he sacrificed his career. To me, there's nothing more masculine than putting your partner and family first, regardless of what is traditional or what others think. Story 9. They embrace a little femininity. Seriously. The guy who's insecure will never even joke in a way that could make them seem slightly feminine for the duration of the joke. A guy who's secure will relate their breakfast burrito because it makes the first guy uncomfortable. Surprising number of replies seem to be completely missing the point. The point is that one of the ways you can tell if a guy is secure is that they have no problems doing things that are traditionally seen as very unmanly. I'm not saying this is the only form it takes. I'm not saying they feel they have to do this to prove something. The entire point is the opposite. They do not feel the need to prove something, so they aren't limiting themselves to only stuff that curate a traditional manly persona. And it should have also been obvious that this is not specific to a burrito job. That's a funny example to illustrate the idea. Can't believe I used to think reading comprehension was a waste of time in schools. Story 10. He has no time for, but also does not get angry about questions like this one. People talk about toxic masculinity so much, but I have to say, if a behavior truly is toxic, it isn't masculinity. People who say that actual masculine behaviors are toxic likely don't understand actual masculinity. To be masculine is to be powerful and capable of savage behavior, but to regularly practice patience, restraint, and genuine care for others. The savagery is only necessary for protecting those he loves and should be used sparingly. A truly masculine man is well-rounded, educated, knows the arts, can perform domestic duties, is quick to listen, slow to anger, is handy, is helpful, and doesn't waste time on things that don't matter. Story 11. A few years ago, my wife made a new friend. When I met him, the first thing he ever said to me after the pleasantries was, "We should hang out sometime. I'm usually doing something manly like cleaning my weapons." No, my dude, you are LARPing, as what you think a manly man is. I have known him for like 8 years now. I've never felt like he was ever being himself. He just got a Cybertruck and I laughed because, of course, maybe that's how he wants to really be, and good for him if so. But I can't help but think of a line from a Jimmy Eat World song. I try it, but it shows when I'm around him. To me, dudes should just live their life. If you're trying to be something else, that's just going to make you feel empty. Maybe he should try actually enjoying himself instead of trying to live up to some outdated stereotype. Story 12. I'm not sure why so many people attempt to wade through whatever it is. I guess we all like pretending the vast majority of people are bad or something. Most men, the vast majority, are secure in their masculinity. The examples used in this very thread prove that. How many actual alpha males, guys who describe themselves as such, exist in your life? Mountains and molehills for social media karma. That said, because you enjoy fruity drinks and someone does not, doesn't make you more masculine, them less, or have any bearing on the level of security. Some of you are not as sensible as you think. Story 13. In my experience as a man who works in a pretty alpha male heavy place, I'd say the biggest separator is insecurity. A lot of guys will still use the "that's not straight" line well into their 40s, and then feel they need to desperately defend themselves from that title, or they need to protect their acumen. I remember one day a group of us were sitting in our break room and they were all talking about wanting to have a triad and each of them talking about themselves like some sort of Olympian god. Then they turned to me and asked about it and I'm just like, I'd never have a triad. I got enough anxiety when I'm trying to please one woman. I probably have a panic attack with two. And then I got called not straight for a week. Story 14. My husband will not hesitate to get me necessary products in a heartbeat. He has me send him a pic of the packaging so he can make sure he gets the right product. I will never forget the day while he was folding laundry, he threw on one of my crop tops. It was honestly really hot on him. I hardly ever do laundry, by the way. He takes on most of the domestic, womanly cleaning chores. He doesn't believe in gender roles. He believes in partnership. Once when we were at a concert, I made a comment about the lead singer being so cute I just wanted to fold him up and tuck him away you-know-where. My husband's response was, "I'll take pictures." I could go on and on about him forever. He's exemplary. Story 15. If he calls himself an alpha male or brags about his own rules or other such crap, he's never grown up. If another grown man is upset or uncomfortable about my old self wearing a bright pink shirt to give someone who needs a laugh, then you need to get over yourself. Toughen up, sunshine. The man in the pink shirt ain't gonna taint your masculinity. He's probably gonna go home, have a cup of tea, and go to bed like every other day. If you want to give rules to people, go ahead, but they ain't gonna follow them and they're gonna think you're a schmuck. Story 16. I think when he's uncomfortable enough to step out of the framework a bit, like he loves cats or RuPaul or sings along to Lizzo or something. Not saying those in particular, but that would be an example. I met this guy that is very masculine presenting and by all measures, pretty fit. Did time in his youth. I have some hokey crap in my place, crystals and candles and whatnot, including these like tarot card wall hangings. He noticed them and asked if I had any. Of course I did. He asked me to read one for him. I'm pretty early in it, but I did a spread and read it out. Then dropped a pretty in-depth interpretation on me that was very insightful while also very succinct. I was like, what the hell? Guess his mom was into it. Read his tarot card a lot as a kid. Brought him a deck in prison and some of the guys were into it. Guess they were just ending time anyways. Lost the Hierophant at some point though, which I found fitting, is pretty unconventional. It was refreshingly unexpected and, unsurprisingly, he's one of the more confident and free-thinking people I know. I bet he secretly judges everyone who doesn't have a comprehensive tarot card collection. Story 17. Usually you can see it after looking at what he wears and what he talks about. He doesn't feel the need to prove it to anyone. Thus, out come the comfortable clothes or stuff that he likes because it fits him or his view of himself. I'm 45 and an IT guy who also fixes his own motorcycle. When I can get away with it, you'll see me in jeans and a t-shirt, and when it gets colder, out comes the hoodie. I look good in a suit and tie and do wear it when the occasion demands it. I drive a minivan. I've never, ever understood the need to prove to anyone that I'm a man. I am one. I like being one. I like women too. They usually like me too. I'm honest and respectful. And I was raised basically by 3 women from my family. I'm not good looking, but I know my worth and what I can do. And thus, I guess I'm confident. Mostly. We all have insecurities, and that's fine. Story 18. He's comfortable doing things that may be considered feminine. If I ask if he's okay with me doing his makeup for fun, he says yes. If our potential daughter asks him to have tea with her in a pretty pink dress, he says yes. He's able to compliment other men or give his opinion without saying, I'm straight, so I wouldn't know. He is comfortable having close male friendships without having to hypermasculine everything or be cold towards his friend. He's able to cry and express his feelings without being too controlled and stoic. His masculinity is not threatened when there is either external or internal femininity present. Story 19. Not caring what other people think when it comes to being comfortable. A good example. Last summer I was whitewater kayaking, and I somehow forgot my dry clothes at the put-in. End of the day, it was way too hot for my wetsuit. When I realized I had forgotten my dry clothes, my wife offered me the dress she wears after boating. Rather than be way too hot in my wetsuit, I put on a dress. The folks we were kayaking with all had a good laugh about it. Their pics of me striking a pose for them. Hell, I even stopped in a convenience store for a snack on the way back to my truck dressed like that. When I told a buddy about it, he got really bothered by the whole thing and said that he would have been hot and uncomfortable in his wetsuit rather than wearing a dress. My buddy isn't secure in his masculinity in the slightest. Story 20. And he's more human than man and accepts that. A man is a gender role where a human being is just themselves. I love a good-looking woman. Wear jeans, a leather jacket, and boots because I like it and feel comfortable in it. I change diapers, as many as my soon-to-be ex-wife. Don't drink, drive a hybrid car and not a truck. My next vehicle will be a minivan. Love disco. Want to learn how to paint nails so my daughter will always have pretty nails. Want to learn how to sew and design clothing. Don't like guns or hunting all that much. Love yoga and the occult. I do those things not because they're manly, but because it's what I like. The whole being a man thing is BS. Just be unapologetically yourself. Story 21. I had a conversation with my dad recently about defining what a man is. It was after I spent a while thinking about the legacy my mom left after she passed a few years ago. The opinion we both came to was essentially a real man makes people around him better or gives them opportunities to better themselves. I don't stress over masculinity or even think about it. I am too busy taking care of my immediate family. And when that is taken care of, I work on vehicles for friends and family. My family has less fortunate friends who we consider family that we take care of when needed, etc., etc. Moral is, any man who gives his time to others doesn't have time to worry about his masculinity. At least this is what I try to live by. Story 22. Just my thoughts. Security is a mindset that is based in reality and the truth. Secure guys can take a joke and laugh at themselves. Secure guys also know when someone is being rude or demeaning and they call them out on it. They know everything is not about them, so they learn to be interested in others. They dress like they respect themselves, but they honestly and genuinely don't worry about or care about impressing people. It's not about external validation, but it's about doing things in a way that is true to yourself and your nature. Security with yourself takes a while. Upbringing from a secure dad can really help the process, but anyone can learn it. Guys and girls. The process really starts with the foundations and people you surround yourself with. Allow to be around you. And the stories that you tell yourself. Surround yourself with good, honest people. Question the things that believe and always welcome new data, even when it hurts. Try to take emotion out of things and make decisions unless it really matters. Write down your honest core values. Revisit them often. Story 23. Not worrying about masculine crap. It's amazing how often I get looks at the store when I'm buying pads for the women in my house. Like, dude, 1, they aren't for me. I'm already out and about, so why would I make my wife or stepdaughter run to the store and waste the gas? 2, Even if I was trans or whatever it is you're thinking, and they were for me, it's not your business. I got in a short argument with my dad a year back. I was confused to learn that not only did I allow my wife to put our youngest son in dance and baton, but I showed up and supported it. I just told him it's what the boys want to do. When he asked what would happen if he turned not straight, it just kind of shrugged and said, "At least if he has kids, he planned it out ahead of time." Story 24. He has his own definition of masculinity and strives towards it. One shouldn't build ideals upon the ideas of one structure or one man, but of the ones who are kind and strong in the way they wish to be. I'd hope to have the strong words of Churchill, the grace and humor of Mads, with his taste too, with perhaps the demeanor of Eddie Berg with his style. And to round it off, I'd like to be charitable and peaceful like Cillian Murphy. All very different men, all vastly different. Yet I'd expect something vastly different from another man, with a different ideal and different beginnings. I'm more feminine in my tastes and personality by average psychological analysis, but I still see myself as masculine. And frankly, I couldn't care less if my father or other people think less of it, because that means I'm doing fine. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 25. Best marker is a lack of insecurity about his masculinity, which basically translates to not giving a crap, which isn't necessarily good or bad, in my opinion. It's actually a pretty hard question, so I've given it a chance. Thing is that I'm not sure people know that literal security about masculinity isn't the same as positive masculinity. These are all matters of taste, but I know that one marriage ended over a dude wanting to experiment with his feminine side, and the wife just couldn't stand seeing their partner being unmanly. Dude's definitely secure in his masculinity to the point where he was all good about it. Perhaps they weren't meant to be. Perhaps he should have a partner that didn't care about surfaces, but why would he then go for a feminine wife? Perhaps he was just comfortable enough with himself to know what he wanted and what he expected without giving it much thought. In a recent case closer to home, a covert narcissist messed with a friend by reinforcing that they'd bottled their feelings for so long, reinforcing every bit of whining and crying, only afterwards bearing them apart for having learned that they were actually a crybaby in disguise as a man. Yeah, brutal stuff. Dude's a shell of his former self. Perhaps if he was more secure in his masculinity, he wouldn't have cared about being seen as a crybaby. I'm all for breaking down traditional barriers, but people need to understand that they'd be letting go of many things they take for granted, and figuring out the stuff from scratch may not be as easy as people think. I, for one, think that a bit of vulnerability and insecurity can be fun, romantic, and hot. Story 26. Laughs at jokes at his own expense without taking a hit to his ego. Handing a grocery or shopping bag to their partner when they offer to help carry. You'd be surprised at how many men see it as a sign of weakness and refuse to let their partner help them in anything. This happens with women too. I had a friend who absolutely would never allow a guy to help them do anything. I never saw it as a prejudice, just understood from the way she was treated by her father as being not as capable as the brother. This makes a person feel like they have something to prove. Sometimes people ask their partners if they can help. You don't need it, but consider it makes us warm and fuzzy inside knowing that we helped in what little way you allow us. Please, everyone, if your partner offers a hand, accept it, even if it's unnecessary. Sending love to all. Story 27. I feel like the ability to be patient and listen is a hugely attractive masculine trait. My girlfriend one time when we started dating briefly mentioned when we were looking at candles that she loved the smell of sandalwood. So I replaced all my shampoo and body wash with sandalwood scents. And she's now always complimenting me on how good I smell. Be the kind of man that people are not afraid to talk to about anything. Whether it is your partner or your friends, have open ears and don't always try to interject with some story about what happened to you one time that relates to their experience. Just listen. It goes a long way. Story 28. Funny, this is the exact thing I've been asking myself. As a mostly straight guy who recently has been working on accepting that I'm into expressing my enjoyment to feminine energy when I'm at home, I realized that being secure in my masculinity means that I don't have to wonder if liking a dress makes me not straight. You know what makes a man not straight? Being attracted to other men. The idea that some macho man will have to tell you all the time how much of a man they are to me just oozes insecurity. While on the other hand, when I'm out with friends and laugh about wondering if that dress comes in my size, I'm a larger guy. I feel like I don't have to constantly reaffirm how much of a man I am. Because for me, it's not about how I look. It's about how I feel. Story 29. I have tiny feet, so women's sneakers fit me better. I'm 6 foot, but my shoes are a men's 8. Also, all regular sneakers, like New Balance, off the rack, only comes in like 4 colors for dudes. Black, gray, blue, or white. I went to the New Balance outlet in Florida and they had some fresh colors in the women's shoes. Basically the same models as the men's shoes, but in smaller sizes and in much larger variety of colors. Nothing too girly, but since I was in Florida, I got the black NBs with pink or orange soles and logos, and a few other kinda loud colorful women's sneakers, but nothing you would think was really girly. The dudes at the bar roast me about the colors from time to time. I just roast them right back, saying I borrowed them from their sister the other night or something like that. Story 30. I had a boyfriend, who's now passed on, rest in peace. That wasn't all weird with his guy friends like the guys I went to high school with. My best girlfriend and his best guy friend barely knew each other, and we all took a trip together, and all got a hotel room to save money. My boyfriend and his guy friend shared a bed, and my best friend and I shared a bed. There was no debate. We got to the hotel room, and my boyfriend and his friend asked us which bed we wanted, and that was that. Two guys sleeping in the same bed. I'm making it weird. What a breath of fresh air that was. Compare that to the situation I was put in college. My gal pal, her boyfriend, his friend I barely knew, and myself spent the night in a hotel, and I had to share a bed with some guy I barely knew, all because them two sharing the same bed was not straight. Me? A guy that's secure in their masculinity can be affectionate with their male friends the same way women are with each other. If he's a hugger, everyone gets a hug, not just his female friends. If two guys sit next to each other, they're cool with it and don't get all weird if their knees touch a little bit. It's about having real confidence, not fake confidence. Story 31. Doing things that are labeled as feminine by society, without making it a big deal, or accepting men that do feminine things without pointing it out. Like, I guess I have a different view on it since I'm a trans dude, but when I was coming out first, I was really insecure about what I was allowed to do and what not. Like, I only would dye my hair in natural colors, even if I wanted fancy colors, since I was a kid. So now, a couple of years later, I don't really give a crap about it anymore. I dye my hair the way I want and sometimes put on some black eyeshadow for my emo-ness, and sometimes I still feel insecure about it, especially because I'm not on testosterone yet. Like, I know that the chance to get misgendered is higher, but so what? I know I'm a man that won't change just because the other people don't see me as a man. I don't want to spend my life avoiding things just because it's unmanly. I love guys wearing nail polish or makeup. I want to be one of them. And just that dumb wrong chromosome won't stop me. P.S., like I said, I know that might lead to being misgendered more, and I really want to distance myself from the TikTok trans people getting mad at people misgendering them while they present fully feminine. Like, people will just call you the way they think it's right based on your looks, and that's okay. Story 32. I disagree with the silly. That doesn't scream masculine nor leader to me as a woman at all. I'd say for me, a strong woman, a strong man, doesn't take offense easily nor act on pride or defend his pride. That would make him subject to burning his own energy for lesser men who offended him to protect his fragile ego. He's got way more important things to focus his energy on, like defending my honor and showing other men how to behave around me because I'm his. He's in control of his own fuse. That's a man. A masculine guy is mature and not looking to prove himself, nor compelled too easily for some idiot questioning him or offending him. However, he makes me feel like he has no fear nor hesitation when compelled to fight for the right reasons, like someone hurting his kids or wife intentionally who won't respect clear boundaries. He carries an inner confidence and control over his own fuse. He makes intelligent decisions and has my back. On the contrary, my own spouse liked to fight this young man and is strangely proud of that. I've never told him it looks like false confidence to me because I understand it was an immature display of testosterone. If I were him, I'd quit referencing it though and be embarrassed of it now. But hey, I'm not him. Deep down, I've always had more confidence than he ever has. I still like that he's a masculine guy in general, even if he's a schmuck like we all are at times. Dude watches laws and stocked up when he thought there were restrictions coming in the Second Amendment. He watches international politics. He knows all the safe zones and unsafe places he'd never take his wife and kids traveling. Watch the Owen Wilson or Lake Bell movie No Escape to see what happens when a man moves his family without paying attention to this stuff. Story 33. I think being secure in your masculinity comes down to a simple question. Are you a man? If your answer is yes, without justification, mental gymnastics, explanations, or definitions, you are truly a man. You don't need to change anything about yourself, nor do you need to act a certain way to be a man or a woman. You just are. You can't become. You can't stop being. You just are. This is what I think about masculinity and femininity, and all those arbitrary rules for what being a man or a woman means. All these people in the comments saying things like emotional maturity makes you a man, being responsible makes you a man, being quiet makes you a man, being humble makes you a man. That's all BS. Being emotionally mature makes you emotionally mature. Being responsible makes you responsible. Being humble makes you humble. Being quiet makes you quiet. And being a man makes you a man. Nothing more, nothing less. The idea of masculinity and femininity is mistaken correlation and causality. Story 34. Having a positive body image and not being self-conscious about the way you look or what you may think other people may perceive you as, based on what you wear or don't wear. Whether it be a tie with a short-sleeved collar shirt, a Canadian tuxedo, having a mullet, etc. The examples below deal with body shaming. Wearing above-the-knee shorts, for example, with a 5-inch inseam or shorter. Boys or men often feel embarrassed by any presumed ridicule or gossip they may receive. Also wearing a skirt, not a kilt, or wearing a kilt which usually extends to just above the knee in the traditional Scottish kilts. Also wearing a real bathing suit to the beach or pool, specifically what are sometimes called Speedos. Although the Speedo company now makes all flavors of swimwear, thus explicitly not wearing shorts in a swimming pool. If you can man up enough to wear something that most people would probably find more comfortable and better looking, but also prejudicially perceived as and stupidly considered to be not straight, if you as a person of the male gender can be comfortable with your own body and disregard the often over-exaggerated claims of the body-shaming movement, then you are indeed masculine. I find that the male gender is too shy to show a bit of skin is not at all a masculine quality. In fact, worrying about how you look and how other people will think about you because of what you wear is a very feminine quality. Like the still common practice of girls thinking they need to wear makeup to appear attractive, or worse, the overuse of makeup, which makes many women look insecure. Both genders have bizarre self-esteem issues, so get over it and man up. Be comfortable with your own body. Take your shirt off when it's hot outside so you don't have to sweat up your clothing, and the primary places where people sweat are in the upper body. Summarily, a good sign a dude is secure in his masculinity is when he can wear summer clothes in the heat of the summer without feeling self-conscious, and particularly swim briefs or bikinis, traditional 2 or 3-inch inseam, jogging shorts while jogging, above-the-knee shorts, but wants to have their thighs sweaty and their calves cool. It's just weird. So, not being self-conscious about your body and the way you think people may perceive you is masculine. Story 35. I know this sounds really trivial, but I used to work in bars or hospitality, and men tend to only order drinks which are natural or neutral colors like brown, clear or white, maybe dark or deep red or with a bit of natural green, like a mojito. They very rarely get drinks with fancy delicate glasses, usually preferring square, and tend to not like drinking when there are too many decorations or straws, etc. A fairly large number of men will actually act horrified if they're given or see another man get given a girly-looking drink, even if the drink is actually far stronger. For example, an Aviation, which is purple and comes in a martini glass, and basically pure spirit. If a guy is confident in ordering whatever fruity cocktail he wants, doesn't blink an eye or make a comment if it turns out a bright or girly color like pink, orange, or lilac, and doesn't instantly remove any garnish, to me that's a sign that he's secure in his masculinity. He's not performing. He doesn't feel he has to conform to masculine-looking drinks. He doesn't see girly drinks as automatically bad or weak. He's just living his best life. But I'll throw it out there. Very few men meet this bar. Some will drink non-masculine drinks as a statement, but very rarely will a man unironically order something like this. Story 36. Not giving a crap about how they're perceived. 2 examples. I'm taking archery lessons. Whenever I land a 10, I turn to my coach and tell him, "That was for you, baby," and then blow him a kiss. He initially thought I was not straight, then realized I don't give a crap what others think. It's all for the laugh. Side note, one of the toughest coaches at a range came out as trans. My coach was thrown for a loop. Number 2, lived in Japan for years. My town hosts a man festival at a local temple. It's held outdoors at night. In February, 5,000 men wearing fundoshi, sumo diapers, wrestle each other for bundles of sticks while being hosed down with freezing cold water. Men come from all over to compete. I made a point to go out to dinner and watch a movie. A friend of mine from the US asked me why I didn't participate and demonstrated my manliness. My response, because being a man means doing what you want, not constantly proving yourself to others. Story 37. Well, for me, when I was charity fundraising, I'd get approached by a lot of non-straight older men in public. I just decline, have a nice little laugh, and continue with life. I came from the London Council of State of Mind type crap that don't take too well to such encounters. But end of the day, I even had to tell my team I was on with for that day that end of the day it just means I'm so sexy men want me. And that's great. For me, not them. No need to be worked up on what goes on around you if nothing is truly happening. To me, being able to control or own up to my feelings and emotions in the face of anything is being secure in masculinity. Story 38. My husband is willing to have experiences that women are expected to adhere to. Willing to try long nails, at least for the weekend, but you rock them. Try a dress. He did like the breeze. Try wearing pantyhose. They're annoying. Shaved his legs. Took an hour, lol, but I did treat him to nice fresh sheets. He's willing to experience the wild beauty routines women are expected to go through to maintain a beauty standard. Any man willing to show empathy and willing to put in the effort to understand what women are expected to achieve is secure in his masculinity. They know that the mere existence of femininity is not a threat, but a beautiful ornamentation to their masculinity. Story 39. A securely masculine man will read the situation and either get upset or not, based on what is really needed. An insecure guy either fights or fawns when his wife talks to another man, regardless of the situation. Many insecure guys try to portray their fawning as some masculine virtue. Look at me, I'm not insecure. Of course I let other men have intimacy with my wife, but secretly even they would be more happy if their wives wouldn't flirt with other men. They're just so afraid of conflict or abandonment that they can't say it out loud. Story 40. I lost a friendship with a woman because her then new boyfriend was very insecure. He thought I was trying to steal her from him. Even though we'd been friends for far longer than he's known her and I'd shown no signs of trying to make a move on her, and he threatened to hurt me if I ever talked to her again. The worst part was, she ultimately chose to cut me off, throwing away her friendship in favor of being with him. Story 41. He's comfortable helping with household chores. Male relatives crap on my husband for cooking, cleaning, doing the laundry, and making my plate at dinner sometimes. But he just ignores them. It's nice being with a man who understands that it's everyone's responsibility to care for the home, not just those with 2 X chromosomes. He's emotionally aware and has relatively high emotional intelligence. Generally speaking, fears around perceived masculinity shows a lack of emotional intelligence or awareness. Also, things like being able to show other men affection without fear, not being afraid of public perception, and things like that. Generally speaking, people who are secure in their masculinity aren't fearful of perception or worried about external judgments. Story 42. He'll carry around any and all girly stuff for his significant other and or daughters in public, without question, and seem genuinely pleased to have the opportunity to help them out by doing so. There's no dudes that wouldn't touch a woman's purse or even shopping bag, not even temporarily, to free up her hands for something she needs to do. No one's going to seriously think it's yours, and to the a-hole has to joke, "Nice purse." You can just reply, "Thanks, I'll pass the compliment along to my wife. I agree, she's got excellent taste." Story 43. I admire guys who will do something publicly even if they're bad at it. Dancing and singing are things I'd love to be able to do, but I need about 10 drinks in me before my self-consciousness drops to a level that allows me to do that. Not sure why, because I'm quite comfortable showing my caring, emotional, or vulnerable sides, which is traditionally not a masculine thing to do. On the other hand, if it's my daughters wanting to dance, I will get up on the dance floor and dance with them, even if I'm the only one up there. Story 44. One time, my brother and some friends walked into a breakfast restaurant to meet up with my sister. She had forgotten her purse and I had to bring it in front of her, so I flipped it over my shoulder and carried it with some flair. Might as well own it. Brother turned around after a few seconds and scolded me to stop carrying it like that. "People are staring." I burst out laughing at his comment, because why would I give a crap about random people? He turned around speechless. Ladies, what's something a guy has done, intentional or not, that instantly made you think, wow, he's different in a good way? He broke up with me because he was moving out of state for a job and I just wasn't going to be able to follow him. He brought me flowers, snacks, dinner, cards, and I don't remember what else to soften the blow. When he came back to visit, I was struggling hard, as in I could barely afford to feed myself. When he stopped by to see me, he had arms full of groceries to stock my fridge and pantry for weeks. He also kept trying to give me cash, but I refused. After he left, I found money stuck under something on my counter. Can't remember what. He passed away a few years later in a car accident. Chris, you are one of a kind. I'll never miss the opportunity to tell the world what a uniquely amazing human you were. He's the kind of ex you secretly hoped would win the lottery and remember you in his will. Guess life had other, significantly less lucrative plans. Story 2. When my husband was my boyfriend, I noticed that he always acknowledged everyone in the room. For instance, whenever we were in a room with my entire family, he would approach absolutely everyone. My dad, mom, sister, cousins, uncles, aunts, friends, and be able to establish a conversation and a relationship with them eventually. Even my relatives' dog knew him to be the only one that could set aside some time just to pet him. At first, I thought that my boyfriend is just a social being, which I was appreciative of seeing, as how I personally have been always a socially inept, awkward individual. But eventually, this gift of his reaped dividends too. As when a close cousin of mine, let's say, fell in with a bad sort of crowd, and was in desperate need of help and support. The only person she felt comfortable reaching out to was my boyfriend. I was then able to pass word to the rest of the family and also rescue her. Story 3. I'd been dating my now husband for about a month, maybe 2. One evening I was at home and he unexpectedly showed up at the door and asked me to come out to his car. He just showed me a piece of wood he'd bought. Turns out he bought it from near my house, and as he was passing, he figured he'd stop by and show me. Literally showed me his wood and left. I knew then that he wasn't trying to play games or act in a certain way like other people I'd dated. That piece of wood is now our coffee table. Story 4. One of our first dates. A teen waitress spilled a whole glass of water on him when it was super busy and she was rushing about. She started apologizing with tears almost running down her face, and he took the time to console her, not even worrying about his clothes. He gave her a moment to breathe without the other customers by pretending to look busy with her before she went on her way feeling better. I've seen too many waitstaff get treated poorly, but watching him take care of her leads me to believe he's going to be an amazing father one day. Story 5. In high school, one of my guy friends who liked me baked me a big plate of chocolate chip cookies and randomly gave it to me one day. I finished the whole plate during one class, and he was impressed, and also a bit horrified. I thought it was super cute and unusual for a dude to bake some cookies. He and I have been together going on 16 years, married for almost 7. How he baked me cookies is one thing I'll never forget. 16 years and almost 7 years married. All thanks to a plate of cookies. Proof that the way to a person's heart is through their stomach, and maybe a little bit of charm. Story 6. I'm a type 1 diabetic and I wear a pump, which is basically a machine that helps track my sugar and give me insulin accordingly. When my sugar gets too low or too high, the pump makes noises. A low tone for low BS and a high tone for high BS. My significant other figures those tones out. One night I was sitting on the couch scrolling and my pump signaled I had low sugar. It was in the kitchen and without a word being said went to the fridge and brought me a juice box. I didn't know he knew and it felt really good to feel understood and that someone was actually taking the time to know me and my disability. We had only been dating for 2 to 3 months at this point. Story 7. When I started dating my guy, he knows how obsessed I am with rocks and beach combing. We live on the beach, and I'll go look for shells for hours, and he never complains. The first road trip we took together, he took me to the biggest natural rock formation in the West Coast, Morro Bay. I'm a grown adult, and he never made me feel stupid for my love of rocks and collecting. And when we got there, he said, I know how much you love rocks, so I brought you to the biggest one I could. You just can't take this one home, unfortunately. Something along the lines of that. I started crying immediately, because I was always made fun of by my previous relationships for it. Story 8. I went out with this guy I was newly dating, plus 3 other friends one time. We went to the food court to eat, and all 5 of us had different food choices, so we went on our own to order. Unfortunately, my food took longer to make, and eventually I saw the 4 of them, including the guy I was dating, back on the table with all their food. Finally, when I got my food, I went to our table to see the 3 of my friends digging on their plates, while his was untouched. I asked, Is something wrong with your food? Why haven't you touched it? He said, I was waiting for you. I swear, I never forgot that moment. I'm now married to him. Let me just add that my food took about 5 minutes longer than theirs. I was already expecting them to be eating ahead, and I didn't, nor expected, him or the group to be waiting for me. It was the gesture of him waiting for me while everyone else was eating that made me feel that this guy is a keeper. Story 9. I had a difficult childhood, and at one point survived on cans of Spam and sardines. I offhandedly mentioned to him how I always keep at least a can of each in my pantry at all times, because it gives me a sense of peace and safety to know that there's something to eat. We weren't even dating at the time. I visited on the weekends to help him with his garden, but the next time I visited, he showed me the several cans of Spam and sardines he bought in the pantry. He told me he wanted me to always feel safe with him in his home, and he will never let either of those items run out. Been together for a little over 3 years now. Story 10. It was my second night staying over at his place. He could tell that I didn't sleep well the first time, so when he asked why, I told him that I always have trouble falling and staying asleep and that I usually do things like take melatonin gummies to help. So when I went over there to spend the night a second time, he had bought an Android charger. He had iPhone for me to use, melatonin gummies and this lavender-scented massage oil, because lavender is supposed to help calm you down, that he used to give me this glorious back massage before we went to sleep. I still didn't sleep well, but the effort won me over. He ended up being a major schmuck in the end, but this was still one of the kindest gestures I've ever been shown, so I try not to let his stupidity taint the memory for me. Story 11. I was snipping the plastic ring thingy, that a 6-pack of drinks come in. I know it's probably a fruitless gesture, but turtles, I just do it on autopilot at this point. He asked me what I was doing. He'd never heard this before, so I explained. A couple weeks later, I walked into the kitchen unexpectedly and totally startled him while he was snipping up a plastic thingy. Melted. Story 12. I was out with friends and got super intoxicated. I was texting this guy and mentioned it, and he kept telling me to get home safe. While I was out, he asked where I was. I told him. We talked throughout the night and kept in touch. And I was getting ready to go. He already made the 45-minute drive to me and told me he was outside and ready to drive me 5 minutes to my house and then back the 45-minute drive home. I've been dating this man now 2 years. You gotta be careful, fellas, because some other girl would probably think that was creepy. Story 13. On my first date with my now husband, we were talking about our families. I told him I had lunch every Sunday with my grandfather and also spent as much time with him as I could because he means the world to me. My husband looked at me with such awe and love in his eyes, then proceeded to tell me he had a great aunt he had lunch with every week as well because she was like a second grandmother to him. I still think about how he looked at me that day, all these years later. He also tried walking on the outside of me on the sidewalk in case a car came and splashed a puddle. My stupid self had no idea what he was doing. He was trying to switch places with me on the sidewalk when we left the restaurant. Lol. But it was a sweet gesture. Story 14. This seems small, but I dated so many guys who would bring up their exes, blaming them for everything, calling them crazy, calling them names. When talking about past relationships, my boyfriend only spoke about how grateful he was to have experienced love and for the time he did spend with his exes. He spoke with respect about the women before me. I still remember that over a decade later, and it did foreshadow how life would be with him. He's been the most kind, understanding, and patient man I've ever been in my life. Story 15. I had been with my now husband for about 6 months when we did a road trip down south together. My dad is gone, so my husband never knew him. But he was a huge James Taylor fan, and I am too by association. We stopped in Chapel Hill, North Carolina to see Mr. Taylor's childhood home, a bridge named after him, and we hiked along Morgan Creek, which was one of his favorite songwriting spots. It was something on my dad's bucket list, and he unfortunately never got to do it. While we were hiking along the creek, I mentioned to my husband that I wanted to bring a rock back to put on my dad's grave. I meant one from the shoreline or the trail. He immediately ripped his shoes and socks off and waded into the creek, pulling up rocks and tossing them back if he didn't think they were good enough. Eventually, he held one up and said, "This one is Bob's," and trekked back up through the muck to dry his legs off. All for a man he never knew. I knew for certain that he was the one, and we were engaged a few months later. He went full stand by me for a rock. That's true love, folks. I'm just hoping he didn't contract any leeches in the process. Romance is a dangerous game. Story 16. When I first started dating my now husband, I had just come out of yet another relationship where I wasn't treated well. I'd been with people who weren't genuine and showed all the classic F-boy behavior. At that point, I honestly thought there was something wrong with my ability to pick the right man, so I took a long break from dating to focus on myself. And my husband came along. On our third or fourth date, he told me he had something important to discuss. My mind immediately went to, oh crap, what's he about to drop on me? But instead he said, I just want to be clear. I really like you. I'm not dating just to date. I'm dating with the intention of marriage, and I want to make sure we're on the same page. I was floored. In all my years of dating, no one had ever been that intentional or upfront with me. They completely changed the game. Story 17. My husband and I have been together for 21 years, so I'll share an anecdote that made me fall in love all over again. We were at my husband's father's funeral, and we were wrapping up at the cemetery during the part where people take flowers from the spray as mementos. My husband took a white rose, then walked off about 10 yards away. When we were leaving, I snuck a peek at the headstone and realized it was my husband's baby brother, one who was born sleeping about 35 years ago. I didn't say anything to anyone or make any mention, but that gesture will live in my memory forever. Story 18. The way he treats every stranger. He always nods to people, greets every person with a, hello, sir, or ma'am. He's not Southern. I've seen him stop to help numerous strangers. Lady with her hands full who drops something, he's on it. Someone yells from across the street, he goes to make sure they're okay. Kid locked out of his house, he figures out how to contact their parents. Or even something small like just holding the door open for someone. He truly treats everyone equally. From a maintenance worker to a doctor, he will acknowledge you and treat you with genuine respect. It's not something I see in anyone else, and I strive to be more like him. Story 19. I was visiting my parents in a town that's an hour away from the city I lived in and had just started the drive home, but hadn't reached the interstate yet when I got a call from a guy that I was newly dating. He asked if I was in our city or not. I told him I was on my way back. There had been a mass shooting at a restaurant only a mile away from my apartment, and they hadn't caught the guy yet. They believed he was hiding on foot in the area. The guy I was dating said, "I think you should go back to your parents until they catch this guy." And I whipped my car around and went back. No one I had dated previously at that stage, only a few weeks into it, would have taken the time to connect the dots to the location of a dangerous person and where I lived. Worried about my safety, and despite him being incredibly far from controlling, something about him not asking me to go back to my apartment but telling me that he felt it was best that I did not for the sake of my own safety and anxiety felt really sturdy, that he genuinely cared about me. Another thing is that I can get really defensive and have "I don't need no man" moods. Men telling me what to do typically angers me. But when he told me he didn't think I should drive back, I did not feel irritated or defensive. I knew he was saying it only for my benefit. Married him. Story 20. I kissed my best friend and he pushed me back and said, "Let's not do this right now." I was in a really bad place, emotionally. And I think he knew that if we started a romantic relationship at that time, it wouldn't work out. We both needed to work on ourselves a little bit more. We started a romantic relationship about a year and a half after that. We've been together for 9 years now. Literally any other guy I know would have jumped my bones no matter what storms were going on in my life. My partner was there and helping with those storms, but he didn't want to complicate that with intimacy. Story 21. I was staying over at his apartment for the first time. He went to go lock his door for the night, but first said, "Hey, just so you know, I'm locking my door. This," holding up key, "is the key to the front door." He didn't want me to be alarmed by the sound of the door locking, and he wanted to make sure I knew how to get out if I wanted to. It hadn't even crossed my mind to feel unsafe or need a way out. He just considered how I might feel as a woman in a new guy's place. I had never experienced a man put himself in my shoes before like that, or even go out of his way to make me feel safe with such a simple gesture. That was almost 7 years ago, and we're married now. Story 22. I know this post is about men, but I just wanted to use the opportunity to gush about my wife. My now wife, girlfriend, knew that my mom was fighting cancer. We hadn't been dating super long, but she was involved in a 5K to support cancer research and wrote my mom's name on the back of her "I'm running for" shirt. Just did it without making a big deal of it or anything. It just felt so special to have someone be thinking about me when I wasn't there. Story 23. He didn't want to date me. Why? I'm older than I look. I've always had a baby face. Just a couple nights ago, a man thought I was 24. I'm 38. So the guy who didn't want to date me thought I was way too young for him. When he was 32 and I was 26, he was convinced I was a teenager. Even though he was attracted to me, I was doing everything in my power to get him to hang out. We both played for the same rugby club, so we saw each other nearly every week at social events. He avoided me for months. Finally, we were at a bar and he kept asking, "How did you get in here?" And I'd reply, "The front door?" Because I was so confused by the question. He thought I'd snuck in. Finally, I showed him my ID, proving my age. We've been together 12 years now. Green flags mean chase them till you wear them down. Story 24. 3 days before my birthday, my boyfriend said he had gone on a spontaneous business trip, 4 to 6 hours per way depending on traffic, the next day if I wanted to come. I was pretty upset. His boss often made him go on trips with 1 day notice. He had missed my birthday before, along with other invitations, concerts, family gatherings, etc., because of this, and decided against going because I had enough stuff to do and didn't want to waste 2 days and sit in the car for 8 to 10 hours because his boss can't plan properly. So he got up very early and made it back on the same day. Turns out he had to go there to pick up my birthday gift because he wanted to be sure he was there on time. Story 25. I went out with a guy and told him I had created a much-needed boundary for myself where I cannot communicate for 24 hours after our date as I personally need the time to reflect. He didn't bat an eye and said, "Yes, ma'am." 24 hours later on the dot, he texts me and asks how I'm doing and if it was okay to reach out. I implemented that rule so I could learn to sit with my feelings, and he was the first and only man who didn't make me feel bad for having a boundary. I was blown away by his patience and empathy. We're engaged now, and I couldn't be happier. Story 26. We've been talking for a little over a month, but haven't been on 2 dates. He's extremely patient. He doesn't expect anything from me, but welcomes me when I'm open to sharing. I have some traumatic things in my past that prevent me from feeling safe in relationships, but he allows me to open up when I need to and doesn't push when I don't. He also is wonderfully technical, and his brain works in this amazing way that is so interesting to watch working. He can also just hold a freaking conversation. So many guys are terrible at having conversations. Story 27. I was swimming in a lake off of some bluffs with my best friend and someone I was newly dating when my friend injured her big toenail pretty badly in a rock. The guy went to get her, sit her down, calm her down, and help me make a plan for what we were going to do next. I'm squeamish, so I was just offering moral support, but he jumped into action so quickly. People I dated before would have waited to be asked to do something and probably would have thrown their hands up and said, well, I don't know what to do, or otherwise not felt a responsibility to her to manage beyond helping her out of the water. Anyway, I married him, and he's continually proven himself to be capable, compassionate, and tough during emergencies and stressful moments. Having a partner who does not shut down during these moments has enhanced my life by so much. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 28. My now husband and I had been dating for about 3 months when we moved apartments during medical school. After a long day of moving, I was ready to settle and get ready for bed. After a shower, late into the night, I walked into the kitchen in my junky new apartment and found him lining all of my drawers and shelves with contact paper. I honestly would have never thought to do that and didn't ask him to. He just did it. I don't think I'd been shown tenderness like that in all of my 25, at that point, years. 8 years, 2 kids, 2 medical residencies, and many struggles later, that moment sticks in my mind as the purest example of who he is. I picked a good one. Story 29. We had been together for a few months when I started working second shift at my job where I was a vet tech. The job usually left me feeling gross by the end of my shift. I would always come home and get right into the shower or take a bath. After a week or so of him noticing my new routine, I would come home from work, head to the bathroom, and there would be bath bombs, body wash, new pajamas, and lit candles all laid out for me. After my shower, I would get into my PJs and come out to see him in the living room waiting for me with takeout and massage oil. He did this for me whenever I worked the second shift, which was usually 2 to 3 times a week. We would eat and listen to me talk about how my day was while rubbing my feet. He always made me feel important and taken care of. 15 years later, he still does all of these same things for me. He's truly the absolute love of my life. And I'm always excited to tell anyone and everyone about how absolutely wonderful my husband is. Story 30. 2 different men. One had me text him whenever I got home from a date to make sure I made it home. The first time we went to dinner on a whim, he said, let's find something macro-friendly. I'm a bodybuilder. It might not seem like much, but stopping to actually consider what I want is huge for me. Then there's my current kinda man. His level of communication is off the charts. He's currently going through a nasty divorce. When he met me, he told me very early on that he liked me and wanted to date me, but can't promise me a serious relationship right now because of the divorce. He's been open and honest every step of the way, and I've been more than happy to let him set the very slow pace. Story 31. I started dating the man I am now a bit after I went through a divorce that ended in a bitter manner. What drew me in was that he seemed like a gentle and genuinely kind spirit. The first thing that really made me think was that he had good manners. He held doors open for me, treated everyone well, etc. I remember we ended up talking about our pasts, and when I was talking about mine, he was asking me questions and really listening. Like, really listening. I took notice of it, and I was shocked by it. Lol. My ex-husband never wanted to hear about my past. I asked him why he seemed so interested, and he said, because I really want to get to know you, and your past is what has built you into the amazing woman you are today. He was genuinely interested in what made me, me, and he never thought less of me, judged me, or criticized me. He has taught me so much about what a healthy relationship is, and I'm genuinely so lucky to know him. Story 32. Anything that shows lack of ego or being very comfortable in his masculinity. When my husband and I first met, he wore women's sunglasses, because the frame was a shape and fun color that he liked. He used to do cheerleading in middle school. Was called gay a bunch for it, but it wasn't a bad thing to be gay and brushed it off. He just liked doing flips and feeling strong. He also became a black belt in karate for the same reasons. All of those were massive green flags to me. One of his teachers apparently told him that while girls that age didn't realize what a catch he was and didn't give him a lot of attention, he was going to make some woman very happy one day for the exact reasons the girls ignored him in school. And she was so right. Now he'll take a yoga class with me. He also makes his own instruments, puts himself between me and danger, and would do anything to make me happy and keep our little family safe. He pays the mortgage, works hard every day, and has strong, close relationships with men and women. I trust him with my life, and I know I will always be his priority. He's a very masculine man and therefore feels absolutely no need to assert his masculinity or shy away from femininity. Everybody feels safe around him. Story 33. It was when I was casually seeing my now husband. He came and picked up my girlfriend and I at a bar. We were smashed. To be fair, I was only 22 and still in my party stage. Anyway, my girlfriend was far more gone than I was, and it was the winter in the Northeast. Freezing cold, I was walking ahead of them and turned around. It was buttoning her pea coat up, patting the top of her head and said, "It's winter. Keep your coat on, okay?" It was not anything sensual or anything. It literally looked like a dad buttoning up a kid's coat, and she was fumbling because she was so plastered. He was always doing things that made me realize he cared. Little things. It was because of these little things that I felt for him. I mean, before we were technically a couple, he just asked how I was, and I said I was under the weather. He asked if I needed anything, and I said, not really, I'm just bored. He showed up with soup and tea, and he just watched TV with me and rubbed my hair while I had the flu. He just cared for the sake of caring. A true giver. He made me want to give more in return. We've been together over 12 years now. Story 34. Overall, he treats me better than anyone else ever has, including my family. One evening, we were inviting friends over for a little party, drinks, food, games, etc. He, Tim, was picking up the friends and called me to see what kind of food I wanted. They were thinking pizzas. I said that's fine, but don't get all stuffed crust pieces. I don't like stuffed crust pizzas. Don't come at me. It doesn't taste like real cheese and I like normal crust. They came back and were unloading the groceries and his friend said, 4 pizzas, but no stuffed crust because Tim doesn't like them. Tim loves stuffed crust pizza, but he told his friends he didn't like it so they wouldn't rag on me, and so they got regular pizzas. I'd never felt more seen and valued before and that he was willing to take any slack just so I wouldn't have to. It was really moving. Also, I grew up in a household with a lot of issues, but one thing I was never believed to be sick or not feeling well. I was always accused of faking it or exaggerating it. I hardly ever see a doctor outside of the yearly checkups. I suffer from migraines, which as a kid meant nothing. I grew up thinking I was lazy and manipulative because that's what I was told. Whenever I felt sick or unwell and wanted to lay down instead of work, family business. I also, as an adult, hardly ever go to the doctor because of how often I thought I must be exaggerating my symptoms. Tim never questioned me. He always just believed when I wasn't feeling good. He comforted me, brought me medicine. If I said I needed to go lay down in the dark, he would kiss my head and bring me water. He never questioned me, never accused me. He would insist I go to the doctor and get medicine. He healed parts of me I didn't know were broken. We've been together 8 years, married 4. Story 35. It made me feel safe and welcome. After a history of cruel partners and partners who didn't have time for me, my bar was at ground level, and he helped me gain some self-respect and has taught me that it's possible to be truly comfortable around a person. I am very averse to physical contact with people, but I will cuddle him till both of us fall asleep. And if he wakes up before me, he doesn't move till I wake up so he doesn't disturb me. He's genuinely the best thing that's ever happened to me. Story 36. When we started dating, we lived about 2 hours from each other and would have one date each weekend, taking turns as best we could traveling to each other. There was this incredible specialty peanut butter from a local grocery store in the city he lived in, and I had briefly mentioned how good it was in conversation when we had first started talking. He came to my place for a 4th or so date and brought 2 containers of it to me. I know he didn't live remotely close to the side of town the store was on, and it for sure was totally out of the way of his route to me. After a toxic long-term relationship with my ex, it was the sweetest small gesture that meant the world to me. I immediately felt like, oh, this is a new experience of someone caring for me. It probably doesn't seem huge in any way, but to me, it was. He's never stopped going out of his way to make me feel loved and recognized. I moved to his city almost a year into our relationship, and now he's totally entwined with my favorite peanut butter. Story 37. I approached him. Well, his dog approached me, really, but I struck up a conversation because they were both very cute. And we talked a few times on the street over a period of several months. One day he asked what I was doing in this country. I'd explained that I was coming and going a lot, and I said I'd come over as often as I can to visit a friend who's agoraphobic. Drag them out to a museum or a cafe or whatever. Honestly, though that's true, I only said it to the guy because I was starting to feel self-conscious that he had only ever seen me on my own, and I felt a need to be like, for real, I have a friend, you just haven't seen them. But he lit up and went, oh, I have that, and gave me a huge hug and told me I'm a hero. I don't know. Something about a dude being open about mental health is highly attractive, so now I'm low-key, high-key, obsessed. Plus, I struggled with agoraphobia in college myself, which is why I try to visit my friend and everything, so it's very much not a deal breaker for me. In fact, I'm a homebody. If anything, I'm into that crap. Unfortunately, though, I don't have agoraphobia anymore. I still have major social anxiety and keep panicking instead of asking him for coffee or anything. Also, he has agoraphobia, so is asking him to coffee even nice? But I can't just be like, would you like to go on a date inside of your apartment to hang out? Because that would definitely be creepy of me. But I've just booked another flight to visit again in May, and by God, I'm gonna lay it all out this time. Story 38. When my boyfriend, now husband, started dating and things turned physical, he stopped how things were progressing and told me, this goes however far you want it to. You say stop, we stop. You say slow down, everything slows. This is about you. I'll be happy with whatever you choose. At the time, he had no idea my only other experience had been through. Hearing this, and what's more, experiencing his sincerity and how he was willing to do exactly as he said and let me set the pace of our relationship, helped start us out in the place of trust. We've been married for 10 years now and have never been better cared for than I am by him. Story 39. We were at a work party after a huge event, drinking, yelling, carrying on. It was a massive celebration not just of the moment, but of what it took to get there. One of my best friends late into the night handed me a shot, and my face must have said it all. He came up to me, blocked me from the crowd, and I said, "I don't want to drink this." He said, "Then don't," and took it away and hid it where the peer pressure wouldn't know. 2 years later, we started dating. A year later, we're married. We both never forgot that interaction. I knew he was different at that moment. Story 40. I remember when he liked me, but didn't see him in that way and lately rejected him multiple times. One night at a party, he kept trying to talk to me, and I actively avoided him and ignored him. And one woman came over to him and tried to get with him, and he rejected her to try talking to me again. Eventually, it was just me and him left, and I shut it down completely, but being scared at the same time because I thought he would be angry and salty. But he treated me exactly the same. He was still kind and warm to me and told me he wasn't angry at all. I've never had a man make me feel so safe so quickly, and I've never fallen in love with someone so fast. Story 41. Not a romantic moment, but there was this guy in my fine arts class and we had our file submission one day, so after submitting my file, my hands were full of paintings and stuff. He came to help me hold the paintings one by one, even though he had a few in his hand, and also opened the gate for me and asked me to be careful of the steps. Meanwhile, my friends had just walked out, leaving me there alone. It was the first time I had experienced something like this, so it felt good to know that some people do care. Story 42. Years ago, I had gone out of a toxic relationship with somebody who was very manipulative. When I gave my boyfriend at the time a chance to go on a date with me, he really went out of his way to try and make it as special as possible. I'd never been on a real date in my entire life at that point and had no expectations of what a date could be. He tried to take me out to dinner and put on a movie, but everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And just having the patience and consideration to be there and see him try so hard time after time as everything throughout the day just kept getting worse and worse for him was endearing. It really made me feel like somebody out there cares about me in such a sweet way that they're willing to keep fumbling just to give me a good memory. I loved everything about that date and wouldn't change a single thing about it, because every attempt he made to try and salvage it showed me that he wanted this for the long haul. That time and consideration to get to know me and treat me as a great friend first and foremost, before even trying to make an attempt like this, really showed me that he was different from all the guys I'd been with previously. I have a lot of respect for him and always will. Out of all the guys I had dated, he's the only one that wanted to actively treat me to a real date. It was definitely built different. Story 43. Maybe this is minor, but he asked to kiss me, and we did. Then he asked to take it further, and I said no, and he was completely fine with it, and we kept kissing. At that point in my life, I was 19 at the time. Most of my experiences with people who expressed romantic interest in me had been borderline creepy or overtly creepy. My then friends frequently disregarded my discomfort in minor and major ways. To put it bluntly, I was used to the people around me not really caring how I felt and reacting poorly when I said no. The fact that he rolled with it happily showed me that he was different from the other people I was around. And he was. And I can happily say that years later. I've only learned more and more what an incredible, caring, and loyal person he is. His respect for me stretches far beyond asking to kiss that first time. But that kiss was what made me feel safe around him. By the way, those then friends have long since become ex-friends. Story 44. Everyone is sharing things their boyfriends have done, but I want to talk about one of my friends because he's one of the nicest guys I know. He puts others before himself, and when our group gets together, he tries to make sure everyone is having a good time. One time I was invited to go to a roller rink with his family. I'd never gone roller skating before, and was a little nervous and very unsteady on my feet. He let me take him by the arm and help me keep steady because he knew I wasn't comfortable skating on my own. He absolutely did not have to do that. Story 45. I'll tell on my own self for this one, since I'll never get to tell it otherwise. I'd only been dating my wife for a few months and had only met her parents, but not the extended family at that point. She called me to cancel our date. Her grandfather had gone to get a simple procedure done and had a heart attack. The only reason he lived was he was literally in an OR when it happened. So she was going to go join her family at the hospital when she got off work. So after I got home and ready to leave, I offered to come up and bring a few things like snacks or drinks. As I was walking out of my apartment, I thought, she's been wearing high heels to work every day. New job, trying to dress nice. And I went back inside and grabbed a pair of her flats. The relief on her face when she saw me with those shoes sticks with me to this day. Story 46. He gets the same delight out of nature and animals as I do. I'm someone who, on a nature walk, lags behind because I have to stop every few steps to look at birds, fungi, frogs, and animal signs. It never makes me feel bad for it and even takes a similar fascination with what I'm looking for. He also picks out rocks and shells on the beach that he thinks I'd like. He also has such a profound love for animals, just like me. He and I both could stare at a zoo or aquarium exhibit for 45 plus minutes just in complete awe. Our DMs for the last 5 plus years are 90% animal or nature photos and videos. We even influenced each other to appreciate animals we had not otherwise considered. I got him into birds and he got me into dinosaurs. Sometimes I think I take this for granted. I never really bonded with someone like this in my past relationships, and one of them would have even made fun of me for it or brushed me through my enjoyment of wildlife. It's really special to share a love for critters and learn more about them in the process, too. Story 47. I had a consultation for an IUD insertion and asked my now boyfriend to come with me because I was scared of the pain. IUD insertions are notorious for being painful, but it turned out that it was only a consultation. While I was talking to the receptionist, he paid for the consultation without me asking or expecting it. On the day of the actual insertion, he couldn't join me, but afterwards, he asked if I wanted him to come and keep me company, or take care of me in case I was in bad shape. It might not seem like much, but to me, it showed that he sympathized with the fact that the burden of contraception mostly falls on women and what we sometimes have to go through, plus side effects, to prevent unwanted pregnancies. So he sympathized and wanted to show me he did. I really appreciated how thoughtful he was. Great guy. Story 48. My boyfriend at the time, when no one else would, stood up for me. And not just to anyone. To my severely mentally ill mother who constantly takes out her anger and frustrations at me. Growing up, she always found something wrong with me, even if I followed her instructions to a T. Got to the point where I became more and more of a recluse until my boyfriend stepped in and told her what she'd been doing to me and how awful she was treating me. Even though my mother still doesn't like him, I don't care. I defend him every time his name is brought up. I plan on marrying him. He knows my family hates him, but despite that, he knows my love for him surpasses that. And I'm so privileged to call him mine. I can't imagine many people doing what he's done for me. Story 49. My boyfriend of 4 years has a compassion and heart for animals like I've never seen. That goes for wildlife, pets, and farm animals. One example of this is how he rescued our cat Goose. We lived out in the boondocks, and one day a stray cat showed up. As soon as my boyfriend noticed him, we went into town and got food, a bed, and a water dish. Didn't take long for the cat to find it on our porch. Eventually, he would come around every day, and my boyfriend started to sit by the food often, waiting patiently for the cat to come around. He would talk to the cat, get closer to it each time. Didn't take long for the timid, hesitant feral cat to let my boyfriend pet him, hold him, and eventually take him to the vet. It's been 4 months now, and Goose is a part of our family. He's now fluffy, happy, and healthy. Basically, my boyfriend would drop anything for an animal in need, if he can help it. He has done so many times for wildlife, strays, and farm animals. I admire that part of him so much. Women. What's something a man has done that made you think, wow, he stands out in a really great way? When my now husband and I had been dating for a couple months, it somehow came up that the house I was renting didn't have any carbon monoxide detectors. He didn't like that and said he was going to get one and install it for me. I was like, okay, sure, and probably forgot about it. And then the next week, we lived about an hour and a half apart and only saw each other on weekends. He showed up with 2 and installed them before we went to dinner. It wasn't just that he cared about my safety, it was that he said he was going to do something and then did it at the first opportunity. I've had a fair amount of people in my life who promise a lot but never deliver, so the fact that he did, well, that meant a lot. A bit later, we were starting to get more serious and he had gotten a new job after recently being laid off. He was talking about his future and that he might sell his house and buy a new one in a year or 2, and I said, oh, what would you be looking for? He replied, well, if we're still together, hopefully we'd be ready to live together, so if you still have the same job, something halfway between our current places so neither of us have a terrible commute. And I figure you won't want all of my WoW stuff displayed in the living room like it is now, so I'll need a man cave. And if I have a space that's all mine like that, it's only fair that you do too. So there should be a room you can turn into a craft room or a library or whatever you want. I was blown away. No one had ever shown me such consideration and thoughtfulness like that. Factored me into their plans without prompting and actually thinking about what I might want. I told him I loved him for the first time 2 weeks later. And yes, our house has both a man cave for him and a library for me. Lord God, when... Story 2. I was 17, went out with a fake ID, started talking to a considerably older guy. Naturally, I attributed his interest to my maturity, sophistication, and poise beyond my years. When he stepped away from me for a minute, another man, total stranger, approached just long enough to tell me, "You're obviously not old enough to be here. That guy you're talking to is not a good guy. You should go home. I'll call you a cab if you need one." The creep came back, and as soon as I started showing hesitation about him, he became incredibly pushy, trying to get me to go somewhere alone with him. I insisted on getting a cab, and he tried to get me to tell him my address, to tell the driver. I ducked him and got in the cab. I'll never know exactly what the stranger saved me from that night, but it wasn't going to be good. I don't even remember his face, but I still think about him sometimes. Pretty sure it was your guardian angel. Story 3. I grew up in an environment where arguments were loud, shouting to get a point across. So it was something I thought was the norm. The first argument with my boyfriend, now husband, was very mature and he never once yelled. He was empathetic and heard me out and put his points across calmly, without making me feel bad. We ended up having a constructive conversation and resolved it calmly, and got ice cream after. 4 years later, he still never once yelled at me. I also don't yell, but that's because I'm a crier. See, lads, this is what a healthy relationship looks like. Story 4. I was hanging around my boyfriend at the time who was bragging about who was cheating on me. The next night when we were all hanging out in a group, he asked if I'd like to go on a walk with him before I went home for the night because he wanted to talk to me about something. He told me everything my boyfriend said about the girl because you deserve to know. He bought me soda and talked to me while I processed it and never once made me feel like he was preying on that circumstance like people sometimes do. Story 5. I had a rough life growing up, and it was still rough when I met him. Friends had fallen away and were off to their own lives. I was working in a call center. I was working triple or double shifts to survive in my apartment alone. My family isn't even a question on the table. I'd just been alone for a long time. I met this guy in a dating app. I've been on a ton of awful dates, as one does when trying to find your person in an app, but this one guy I saw had these pics of him in a hat way too small for his head and a couple of other photos I found endearing. We messaged for a long time, and it wasn't a hollow conversation. Real conversations that weren't ended in one-word replies. After some time and me giving up on dating for a bit, I deleted my app or account, but I couldn't stop thinking about him. So a few weeks later, I made the account again and found him. We planned a date that week. He showed up to our first day with a small gift bag. Inside was a small 3D printed dino. He stood there in the sunset that evening telling me that he didn't know if I would like him, aka continue to see and date him. Should my birthday come in a month, and he wanted to give me a birthday present now, just in case. He remembered my birthday. He remembered every detail from our conversations. He remembered I said I love dinosaurs. Made me cry that night as I hadn't gotten a gift from anyone in a very, very, very long time. It was given with love. He's my husband, 7 years happy and going on till the end of time. God, when? Part 2. Story 6. My now husband, after a few weeks of dating, showed up with a journal he'd picked out. I mentioned in passing I'd liked writing. It was just a nice gesture. He saw it, thought of me, and handed it to me without fanfare as he picked me up for dinner. It was the listening, the thoughtfulness especially for my interest, and the modest way he did it where he didn't need me to make a big deal about his gesture. It was a sign he'd be interested in me and thoughtful in small ways, I thought. 20 years in, I was right, and it is held true. I'm not even going to say anything anymore. Story 7. Certain guys will always stand out for me even years after we dated. Guy number 1 offered to walk me to my car in a parking garage without me asking. Guy number 2 was a really great communicator. Not just a conversation that flows so easily, but I never had to wonder if a long silence meant he was pulling back because he'd established his honesty enough where I knew he'd just come out and tell me rather than play games. Guy number 3 brought me coffee at work when I was having a hard day, and I almost cried from how unexpected the gesture was. He worked in the building next door and took time out of his day to stop, get my normal order, and then found a way to get it to me without disrupting my day so that the kindness didn't become a hassle instead. Story 8. When my husband and I first started dating, we went out to dinner. It was raining outside and there was a homeless man seeking shelter in the front entrance. People were laughing and being mean to him, and my then boyfriend invited him to sit with us and order whatever he wanted from the menu and buy his dinner. Knew I wanted to marry him that night. The nice man gave us random trinkets from his shopping cart, and we still have them to this day. Story 9. Guy here, but my guess is my wife would share this story. We went to college together and lived in separate apartments across town from each other. One day she was having a particularly rough time and was very much looking forward to just hanging out on the couch with me that night watching crappy TV. Unfortunately, at around 4 that day, a big snowstorm rolled through, so we canceled plans to hang out, which just made her day worse. Without telling her, I packed a backpack, bundled up like I was going on an Antarctic expedition, and walked to her apartment. Thankfully, another student saw me walking in the snow and gave me a ride part of the way because I vastly underestimated the distance between our apartments. I got to her apartment, text her, saying I have a joke to cheer her up. Knock, knock. Who's there? Me. Knocks. She still talks about it to this day, almost 15 years later. Story 10. Great self-control. We were in a meeting at work, and this guy, actually a very competent person, was getting unfairly roasted by his superior who needed to put someone down. The guy just stood there stoically and neither crushed nor winced. He let the superior finish his nonsense and then moved with his presentation. No reply, no defending himself, no apology. Kindness, but not the naive, pacifying kind. The type of kindness where you have a lot of power, know incriminating things about a person, and yet choose not to harm them. I was, or am, in awe. Yeah, couldn't be me. Story 11. This is not my personal experience, but rather what I've witnessed and know about a dear friend's significant other. So, my friend and her significant other have been together for 31 years now, since my friend was 19. And the first time I met him and spent some time with him, I immediately knew that he was an amazing man, and madly in love with my friend. The way he was so attentive to her all night, but not in a controlling way. Making sure she wasn't cold and asking her if she didn't want his jacket. The tender, passionate gazing at her, especially when she was talking about something she loved. The soft caressing of her back, holding her hand and stepping in front of her as a big guy who looked disturbed and disturbing, really looked like the man had mental issues, started walking fast towards them to protect my friend. And then the things I know he does because my friend has told me, the most significant ones being, he loves taking care of the house. Although he works full-time just like her and does martial arts 3 times a week, dishwashing, vacuuming, cleaning the bathroom, etc., and really loves to cook. He loves to cook the things she loves, especially because she hates cooking. When they have a child, he did everything except feed their baby, and my friend didn't even need to ask him to help her. He simply did it. Whether it was giving the baby a bath, changing his diapers, picking him up when he was crying, etc., whenever my friend was busy or not feeling well. And when my friend's mother was very ill and my friend and her 2 siblings took turns staying with her mother because she refused to go to a hospice, and they could only hire professional help if one of them was present the entire time, and taking care of her, doing everything for her, my friend's significant other took turns too and took care of his mother-in-law, whom he always called Mom. Although his mom was still alive and he loved her, the best way that he could. My friend has truly been blessed beyond measure with a man she shares her life with and has a son with. But that's because she deserves him. She's an amazing person too. And the last time I met up with him, a couple of years ago, he still looked at her like she was the most beautiful woman in the world. I bet he looks at her that way every single day. God, when? Part 3. Story 12. Was an ex of mine. We went on a second day in the city without realizing it was match day, and it was heaving. He told me he's really uncomfortable with crowds, so I was fully expecting him to lean on me throughout the day. Instead, he took my hand and led us through the crowds. This man told me he has a phobia and he pushed through it for me. I found it such a sweet gesture, and I wish I'd told him at the time as we didn't last much longer than that. But why though? Story 13. It is my now husband. Feels so good to say that, lol. I am in tech and I usually work from home. However, I go to the office occasionally. This time was for a brainstorm meeting for an important project we wanted to undergo. I was the project leader along with someone else, and everyone was brainstorming, but also asking me a bunch of questions, and I felt really overwhelmed as I don't like being the center of attention at all, even though I lead pretty well, I'd say. I texted him after the meeting, about 2 hours before close of day. The meeting was hectic and I was overwhelmed, trying to make light of it. This man legit saw my message and took a bus to my workplace. It takes 1.5 hours to get there by bus. When I closed from work and went to my car, I saw him standing there looking at me with those pretty hazel eyes of his, and I just felt so loved at that point. He opened his arms and we hugged for a long time. I was just taking in his scent. Asked him why he was there because I hate feeling like someone inconveniences themselves for me, and he was just like, I know you well to know that you would be overthinking everything you said in that meeting, so I'm here to take you home. You want to go watch the sunset before we go? It took everything to not just cry. I love that guy. Story 14. This is about 2 guys, actually. I'm a football or soccer fanatic. I've always wanted my favorite football team's jersey since I was about 13. It was a luxury I couldn't afford because we struggled a lot financially. In uni, 2 of my male friends, besties, went 50-50 on a football jersey at my favorite team for my birthday. So teams have a home, away, and third kid. They sneakily get information out of me to figure out which one I'd want. So whilst I thought we were just having a casual convo about our team skits, they were extracting information out of me. I damn near cried when I opened the gift. That season, my team went on to win the Champions League. I plan to have the jersey framed. Those are friends for life. Story 15. It made me feel heard. I was new to this group of people and I'm fairly introverted and naturally soft-spoken. The people around me were great and fun people, but the first time I tried to speak up, I was accidentally spoken over. I felt so awkward and embarrassed, but he noticed, and he said really kindly to the person who accidentally interrupted me, "Oh, hey, sorry, but I think Opie was trying to say something." And the guy that interrupted me apologized profusely, and they all seemed genuinely interested in what I had to say. I never felt so valued amongst a group of already established friends. It made me feel heard. Didn't make me or anyone at the table feel awkward, and I got to speak up. Thanks to him, I grew closer to these amazing people and found my voice amongst them. He rarely asked to step in again, but he's done it for me and for others on many occasions. Such an amazing guy. Story 16. My husband. We were friends before we started dating, and I'd go around to his place for drinks with a few others on the weekends. One night, his kinda stepbrother was there, and his phone got a message. My husband passed it to him and gave him a little tease about it, possibly being a girl. Then he said to him, "I hope you're not talking to more than one girl, because that's not cool." Meaning flirting or chatting up. He was very genuine when he said it, and it wasn't to impress me. Kinda stepbrother? What is a kinda stepbrother? Story 17. I met my husband when we were 17. Our first interaction was very uplifting. I passed a test. Our teacher would say if we passed out loud and would basically say, "Name, pass." And when my husband heard I passed, he looked at me, said, "Wow, awesome, good job." And I was like, "Thanks." Didn't really know him, thought he was attractive, and it was a nice little thing for someone I didn't know to be rooting for me. He did that often when I passed a test. Gave me a high five, and eventually he squeezed in my conversation with my friend at the time. Then we ended up exchanging socials. He's very charismatic, and his way of asking for my socials was, "Oh, is he your best friend? I think I could have best friend him. You don't have his socials? Well, you'll have mine, and I'll be the better best friend." Definitely an excuse for my husband to get my socials and slide in my DMs in the most cheeky way. How? He messaged me, "Slide. I just slid in your DMs." He continues to court me, and one thing I absolutely love is how he'll open my door for me. He has then and still does. It's just a little thing that fills my heart with joy. He welded me those metal welded flowers with a love note on it saying how his love for me will pass when the flower does, and much more, of course. That love note is on our fridge. We're 24 now, and I can't wait to continue living life with this man. Story 18. I'd had a really rough day and communicated with him that I wouldn't be very chatty while I processed my thoughts. He sent a lovely message, saying he was there when I was ready to talk. Later that evening, he called me and asked me to go to my front door. He had traveled nearly an hour and a half to leave flowers on my doorstep just to make me smile. The sweetest thing was that he wasn't waiting at my door. He was in his car at the end of the road, ready to drive back home because he was respecting my wish for my space to process what happened. Obviously, I did ask him to turn around and we talked for a while. He comforted me and then went home. That kind of care and respect just makes me realize how lucky I am to have him in my life. Story 19. Everything about my fiancé is a green flag, but what first struck me about him was his attitude about life. He calls every weekend a vacation and absolutely treats it as such. It's such a positive outlook that I can't help but try to find the good in things, too. He's the biggest supporter of everyone he loves. If you're taking a picture, he's up there shining his phone to help you get better lighting. He'll sit at your feet and pass you your baby shower gifts. He's 100% himself no matter who he's with. And he's the only man my sister has ever liked. Which says a lot because she has hated every single boyfriend of mine since I was 16. He jumped at the opportunity to help my mom and I take care of my stepdad as he was suffering from cancer. And helped us through some of the worst days of our lives. And we had only been dating a few months at this point. My mom actually pulled me aside during that trip and said, "That is a man you marry." I've always dated horrible men, and for my family to see his kindness and encourage me to lean into him was everything. Story 20. My friends and I were attending a wedding and we're all staying in a big Airbnb. While we were getting ready to do hair and makeup, one of the guys in the group steamed his fiance's dress and then went room to room to pick up and steam all the other women's dresses. He then delivered the dresses back to each room a few minutes later. He said he noticed his fiancée forgot to pack the steamer, so he put it in his suitcase because he had extra space. Once he warmed the steamer up for her dress, he figured he'd steam all the dresses since he had extra time. When we attended a steamer couple's wedding later that year, another boyfriend in the group Airbnb steamed all the dresses, so it's become a fun friend group tradition. Story 21. My current partner never got the chance to meet my dad, who passed away several years before we started dating. I woke up around 11 on a Saturday morning in January to him putting a coffee on my nightstand that he had just picked up from the Dunkin' across the street. I noticed when he kissed me that his nose and hands were ice cold, and as it turns out, that was because he had de-iced, shoveled, and salted my entire driveway while I slept. On its own, braving the Boston winter cold to do that for me would be sweet enough, but my partner also knows that my dad passed away after a fall in an unsalted driveway. He got into bed with me and wrapped me in his arms and said, "I don't want to make you sad by bringing it up, but just know that whenever I see ice, I think about your dad. I'll always make sure your driveway is safe." I don't really know what I believe, but I do genuinely think that my dad was looking out for me the day I met my partner. Story 22. I'm not even a woman, but it was one of my homies. I've known this dude for many years. One of my inner circle. Former musician turned successful producer. One of the guys he produces is a top 10 country artist. He's always been that dude. Super good looking. Women flock to him. Piece of crap, basically. Lol, he's a great husband to an amazing wife. Anyway, we all live in different parts of the country, so if he has a show nearby, he usually gets us tickets. His guy had a show at a big venue in the Bay Area, and we got backstage passes. Oh man, what a day, but that's another story. During the show, the artists told everyone to grab their lady and dance for the next song. There was a young woman in the front row with her parents who didn't have anyone to dance with. My buddy has security lift her chair over the security divider so he can dance with her. This girl was over the moon. The artist even called it out during the song, and she was on the big jumbotron. Never looked at that dude the same again. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 23. Early on, after my ex and I first met, he leaned over to kiss me. I gently pushed him away and said I wasn't there and just wanted to be friends for the time being. For the month that followed, we hung out a lot as friends, and he didn't make another move. We got closer, and one night we ended up cuddling and watching TV. After a couple of hours, he asked me if he could kiss me and didn't move as he was waiting for my response first. It might seem small, but as a person who experienced mistreatments, this simple act of acknowledging my autonomy over my body meant everything to me. We were together for 6 years, and never did he ever make me feel unsafe with him. Story 24. Not my spouse, but just a friend I have huge respect for, because I think it's important to include ways men can stand out in contexts that aren't romantic. I always make sure everyone in a group feels comfortable and included, even people who are a little more shy or new to a group. I knew we could be friends when we met because of how respectful and thoughtful he was toward other people, and everyone in our group friend feels the same way. He sets the tone for interactions and will always gently rebuke if someone says or does something not kind, sexist, off-color, etc. He holds people accountable to be good to one another and has created an atmosphere in our friend group that we all feel proud of and work to maintain. Story 25. I've posted this here before, but this is one of the many reasons I knew my husband was the one. I get migraines. They were quite severe in my younger years. My husband and I lived about an hour apart from each other when we were dating, so we generally saw each other only on the weekends. One weekend, he drove down, and about an hour after he arrived, I could feel a migraine coming on quickly. I told him I wasn't feeling well with a migraine and needed to sleep it off for a few hours, but he was welcome to stay and help himself to anything in the house if he wanted to. About 10 minutes later, this wave of nausea came over me, and I made it as far as the bathroom sink before I threw up. I tried to clean it up, but the sink was clogged and I just wasn't in a place to handle it at the moment. So, came out, said, "Hey, use the other bathroom if you need to. The sink is clogged in here. I'll handle it later tonight." I went back to my room, shut the lights, closed the door, and slept for about 3 hours. Got up, felt better, and went out to talk to my now husband. Told him I was feeling better and we could go do something once I cleaned up the sink. He said, "Don't worry, I already took care of it." The P-trap was actually clogged, so I took it apart, cleaned it, and it's draining fine now. I was like, what? I went into the bathroom, and not only did he unclog the pipes, but he cleaned the sink and vanity too. All without being asked, without complaining, and without a moment's hesitation. He even found all the tools and cleaning supplies on his own. I knew he was a keeper. We'll be celebrating our 20th anniversary this year. Story 26. We went on a date to an arcade at an amusement park. I just wanted to play the games, but obviously you get tickets for prizes. We both ended up with a decent amount, but not enough for anything crazy, you know? Maybe a plastic toy or a handful of candy. I usually just give away my tickets, and I was about to suggest we do that, but he beat me to it. We should find a kid and give our tickets to them. I bet it'll make their day. My heart melted. Still together 3 years later. Story 27. Taking ownership of his own contributions to emotional labor within the relationship. I've never had a male partner before my current one who cares as much as I do about the emotional side of the relationship. I've always had to be the one who initiates the conversation when something needs to be discussed or apologize first when there's conflict. A few months into things with my current partner, we disagreed on something. Frequency of communication. He's not a big texter or communicator when not in person, whereas my point of view is that if we were only hanging out once a week, I wanted more interaction between that. We figured out a compromise, which was great. But even better was that he checked in with me about a month later and asked if our compromise was still working for me or if we needed to work on it further. I just found it so lovely and refreshing that he took the initiative to follow up. He's continued to be this accountable and conscientious towards my feelings, and it's one of the biggest reasons why I'm madly in love with him. These stories could be compiled into a handbook of how to be the best boyfriend or husband ever. Story 28. Over a decade ago, I was out with buddies at a house party. We were all around 25, 26. At the party, a girl is really interested in my friend and invites him into one of the bedrooms. He goes something like, "Sure, but how old are you?" And she says, 22. I figured he'd be satisfied with that, but he goes, "Sweet, do you have an ID on you?" And he actually checked it. I remember watching him hold up this girl's ID in her face to make sure it was really her. I asked him about it a while later, and he basically said, "She looked young and she was hot, but man, I'm not going to do anything, even if she wants it." You remember being a teen, right? We didn't know what the heck we were doing. The action of verifying her age was cool enough, but his reason not being entirely selfish really stood out too. Story 29. During the fall semester of my sophomore year of college, I was taking general chemistry and getting my butt whooped by it. My scientific calculator, which I've had for years and I value very much, helped me tremendously throughout chemistry. I ended up misplacing it one day. I didn't realize it until I was doing homework and came across a problem where I needed it. I tore my dorm room apart looking for this calculator, and this whole time I'm on the phone with my now boyfriend. He knew the toll Chem was taking on me and how much I needed this calculator. He told me the next day he'd find my calculator, and I insisted that he didn't have to do that. I'd actually ended up leaving it in my chemistry classroom. He went to my classroom, called my professor. It was very intimidating, by the way, and even searched the lost and found for my calculator. He brought it to me the next day with a note inside telling me that he loved me and that he was my Superman. Nobody else would have done anything like that for me, except for him. Story 30. Me and my husband met working at a local newspaper. One day, before we were even dating, we both got assignments that were going to take us out of office. It was raining pretty hard that day, and his assignment was earlier than mine. Before he left, I said something like, "Good luck in the gross weather. I hate how small our parking lot is. I'm sure when we both get back, our spots will be taken and we'll have to find street parking and walk back to the office in the pouring rain." He laughed and left. When I got back from my assignment later that day, to my shock, there was a single spot in the lot for me to park. I thought it was my lucky day, parked and carried on. Months later, I learned from a coworker he got back from his assignment, noticed there was only one spot in the lot, parked in the street and walked back in the rain to make sure there would be a spot for me when I got back after him. We just celebrated 5 years of marriage and I'm still down as bad as the day we got together. Story 31. My hubby of 22 years when we first started dating brought me a rose and the DVD of my favorite movie because I offhandedly mentioned what it was. It was The Princess Bride and brought a card in which he wrote, "As you wish." He is still the same after 22 years. He randomly walks up to me and kisses me, tells me I look more beautiful every day, and still opens my doors. He's genuinely kind and he truly loves me and tells me all the time. We, like any other couple, definitely have our ups and downs over the years, but I always go back to he keeps trying, he loves me, and we support one another. We just had a conversation over the weekend that dating in today's world sounds horrible, so we're both committed to making our marriage work. Lol. Story 32. I had a full house of guests, mostly friends and my housemates. Somehow we ended up in a very loud, slightly aggressive conversation about music. I don't have a favorite song. He couldn't accept that. He said something about loving country music and had this overwhelming flash of grief and excused myself to cry a little and calm down. I had lost two uncles barely a week apart and I haven't really listened to country since the third pass before lockdown. He came and checked on me, gave me a hug and tried to stop, and I tried to explain it really wasn't his fault. It was sweet, especially as we've only met like twice. When I came back out, another guy, a friend, checked on me quietly too. Then like an hour later, the first guy was hyping up the second guy, telling him he had a massive cake, which was also pretty adorable and sweet. Story 33. After dating somebody for years who I had to beg, plead, and convince to do anything, I was surprised how easy it was to get my new partner to say yes. My previous partner also would only spend time with me in chunks, so I was shocked that my partner now likes seeing me every day. It sounds small, but I was so used to no or not now, maybe, etc. that I would pre-plan my pleads in advance, but I was shocked when my new partner just did things or went with things so easily. I mentioned I wanted to go to a concert. He said okay, pulled out his phone and bought tickets on the spot. I said I wanted to try a new restaurant, and he said, "Let's go tonight." And if things aren't that easy, he'll make a plan for how we can get what I want in the future. It makes me realize how sad and unfulfilling my last relationship was that I had to beg him to spend time with me. Story 34. That wasn't just one guy. It was multiple. When I was in high school, I wasn't popular, but almost everyone still knew my face. I had a gym class my senior year, and at the beginning of that class, the teacher had us divide ourselves into two groups for certain days when we would just stay inside and play something. My group was mostly boys. One indoor game we played a lot was soccer. Being the shy person I am and not liking to be in the spotlight, I was goalie every time. Over time, I realized I was good at it. I frequently blocked attempted goals. One particular day, someone else on my team wanted to try goalie. You know what happened? After a little bit of playing, a good chunk of my male teammates say to him, "Get out the goal, dude, and let Julia in. She does a much better job than you." For once in my time at high school, I'd been recognized like that. It just uplifted me and made me feel good about myself. I'll never understand how much that gave me confidence and that I still think about it to this day. Story 35. I'm not a feminine woman. I'm ornery and used to be more athletic just to set the stage, so this makes more sense as to why it was so impactful. I was also out of the military, semi-recently to the incident. I used to have a big mouth and this guy was getting in my face. I don't remember if it was at a bar or a backyard, but beer was involved. He was maybe 6 inches to 12 inches taller than me. Not hard, I'm 5'5". And it was pretty obvious he thought I should somehow kowtow to whatever he said because he was a man. Anyway, I ended up looking him in the eye, serious, mind you, and telling him I could kick his bum. Well, this angered the guy pretty bad. How I remember it was like a vignette, with the guy's face 2 feet away, me staring at him, everything else out of focus, then suddenly from the right side of my husband's face slides in from nowhere and says, "She can. I've seen her spar." He had seen me spar. At least that much is true. This apparently confused the hell out of the guy. He had been drinking, remember? He got this dumb look in his face, stood there with his mouth open, and the next thing I knew, we were leaving. He stood up for me, but he also knew I could take care of myself and voiced that at the same time. It made me feel like he had my back if I needed him, but he had confidence that I could take care of myself. That was the last time anyone has ever pushed me that far, so it's not a common thing. And I'm not one who ever wants to fight or goes looking for them. I did thank him a bit later as we left, and he just said, "No problem. You would do the same for me." He didn't make a big deal about it or act like he was my knight in shining armor. Story 36. I'm very used to toxic relationships. Actually got with my now fiance as a last-ditch effort to be in a happy relationship, which I was 99% sure wouldn't work. Before I could go on about my life being a promiscuous cat lady, I remember the first time I brought up something he did that I didn't like, and while I was sitting there expecting some big blowout affair of an argument, instead, he looked at me and said, "Yeah, you're right, actually. I do need to work on that. We can probably come to some sort of compromise in the meantime." I was so speechless. I also have Raynaud's disease, which means my hands are always cold, and he will stop what he's doing to individually warm my hands with his, no matter how long it takes. Story 37. It was a new relationship, so I only knew the polished side of him. We were driving in his hometown in the countryside, far from anything and not in a rush, but we had a lot to do that day. Suddenly, we get a flat tire. I start to panic inside. What will happen now? He very calmly pulls over, asks if I'm okay, and then matter-of-factly just says that, you got a flat. No screaming, no yelling, no tantrums. Just got out and continued our conversation while he changed the spare and we continued our day, even if a bit delayed. I was so impressed by his maturity and how well he handled it. That moment, I knew that this guy would be the best partner in a crisis and I knew he was the one. I'd never felt that safe in my life. Story 38. My friend and I went out to have tea. The place was very, very crowded and I was waiting in the line to place my order. After that, I took the coupon and was trying to get close to the counter to share the coupon with the folks preparing the order. Somehow people were just getting in the way and I wasn't able to get closer to the counter. This one guy, tall and strong, who was already near the counter, moved aside, making some place for me and told me, "You can come here." I went ahead and replied, "Thank you." I know it's a very small gesture, but this made me realize that there are people out there who genuinely show kindness even when no one's watching. As a side note, I think he was trying to initiate conversation at the counter, but I just didn't understand. He even tried to stand close to me and my friend, and I still didn't pick up the hint. Or maybe I'm just being delusional and he didn't have anything in his mind. Lol. Story 39. Very early into dating, my current partner, we made dinner together at mine. I just moved into the house with a friend and we were still kitting out our place. We legit only had 2 spoons for some reason, so I had to wash them after I used them for cooking and needed them for dessert. Next time he came over, he bought a pack of spoons and a few other kitchen items that I mentioned I needed, all in my favorite sage green color. I never had someone notice small stuff like that before and do it without being asked because they genuinely care. I fell in love with them pretty quickly for that quality and so much more. Story 40. Just a few weeks after we started dating, I went on a 4-month academic exchange. We still Skyped once a week when I had decent Wi-Fi, but I told him there was no expectation of sticking around. When I got home, I went over to his place to see him. On his dining room table were gifts for all the holidays I'd been away for. Champagne for New Year's, chocolates for Valentine's, a case of beer for St. Patty's, and he sent me on a hunt for chocolate eggs around his place while he and his chef roommate made us breakfast. It was astounding. I'd never felt so welcome, wanted, missed, or cared for by any of my past boyfriends, and I'd barely known this guy a few weeks before leaving town. We had been together 10 years as of last December. Story 41. I dated this guy. Tall, handsome, successful, and he never even threw a slight glance at another woman if we were at a party or outside. His eyes would be stuck on me, while I'd be looking all around. He unfollowed and removed 90% of the people in his Insta, including girls he's talked to before without me ever mentioning anything related. He asked me which parts of myself were unhealed so that he can love those parts the most. He asked me to tell him everything that I like and everything that I don't so that he knows how to make me happy. He told the stars to keep me safe while he went on a business vacation for a week. I jokingly mentioned liking other girls' posts, and he never again liked another pic. We broke up. He still doesn't like other girls' pics. Story 42. I said the L word after a night of drinking and intense intimacy. I was having a very emotional day and a lot was going on, so I asked him to come over. This was due to the heat of the moment, plus already being very emotional, and I didn't really mean it at that point, but I was very embarrassed and I kept talking over him about how embarrassing it was. But he just held me, asked what happened during the day, and listened. Next morning, I left early for work. Texted him that he can just leave my apartment whenever and we don't have to talk about the whole I love you situation. He offered to stay back in mine, ordered pizza and got wine and told me we can have a chill anime night instead. And we did. Never really addressed it, and at that point, it was the perfect way to handle my emotional outburst. It didn't make me feel like it was a big deal whatsoever. So did you end up together? Story 43. This is me blowing my own trumpet. But at 45, my wife and I have finally gotten in the habit of talking to each other a bit more about feelings, etc. We talked about what we both found attractive in the other and what made us both want to progress. My wife told me that it was my gentle confidence in the way I spoke to her, people around us, friends, etc. She said without even meaning to hold friend groups together. I listened to people and people listened to me, and that I used that position generally for good rather than domination, making people feel good and included. She realized she was both attracted to this and actually realized she was becoming jealous of the time I made others feel good rather than her. So, from these slightly conflicted emotions, she realized she wanted to hog me because I made her feel good about herself. Very flattering and handy, as I'm an ugly little dumpling of a man. Story 44. Disagree with me politely, but didn't just turn on a dime and pretend he had different opinions because the pretty girl disagreed with him or tried to placate me. We had a standing date to do swing dancing, and the first day I was starving because I hadn't planned ahead. The next day, he brought a peanut butter sandwich with him, just in case. Took my feelings seriously. We were driving for several hours and his AC busted. I was suffering from heat. He stopped, bought packs of ice, and packed me in the car. He didn't expect me to suffer to make him feel better about his mistake. Knew what he wanted. Kids plus family, but wasn't willing to settle for a woman to get those things. Was holding out for quality. Believes in constant growth or change. None of this, that's just who I am crap. He didn't change his mind just to please me, but he was very eager to be right and knew that meant sometimes he was wrong. We once did research presentations on the value of X, political topic, because we disagree but respect the other person sufficiently to hear them out. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. Catch you in that video.